Yes, I was 1 out of 13, 1.5 million up top. I had a spot. I was very happy squeezing value hand, and the guy put in a decently light combo, and we ended up playing a flip for essentially the tournament, and it didn't go my way. I still had a small stack, but I ended up getting 11th. Even these days, you know, I still think like how my career would look differently if that flip had gone my way. And like, would I be in J2 right now playing the Triton or whatever?
Today we will be chatting with high-stakes MTT player Casimir Seire, better known as Ceis25 online.
If it wasn't for COVID, I probably wouldn't be a poker player because I wouldn't have made the initial sacrifice.
What was it about poker that fascinated you?
There is kind of no right or wrong in a spot. You can be two completely different persons and be good in your own ways. I would rather have a lot of confidence and even be playing some spots badly than just, you know, lack confidence and not being able to execute what I think is good. I'm deep into like the psychological aspect of online poker as well. Timing tells, sizing tells, or looking for all the information I can get pretty much in hand.
What's harder, a scoop grind or a 48-hour army leadership drill?
In the army drill you're gonna do in 48 hours, you kind of gonna focus in stuff. It's okay to make mistakes. On the scoop grind, if you're playing a spot badly, you're immediately gonna get punished by one of the best in the world. You're not allowed to make mistakes. The current meta is still gonna be the small 3-bets. Like last week in Tallinn, my two good friends Otto and Teun were playing a 4-bet pot, 12 big blinds effective. It's silly stuff, you know.
Got a solution for you, man. It's called cash games. No boundaries, no picking, you know. You never have to do any faults, you know. We could just skip pre-flop. Thank you guys for tuning in to what's going to be another great episode of the Mechanics of Poker podcast. Quick announcement, we have seats open for our Mechanics of Poker coaching program. If you want to work with me and Adam and have us help you make more progress in your poker career, you can apply using the link down below or go over to mechanicsofpoker.com. Without further ado, guys, enjoy this episode. Casimir, you played football before you turned professional poker player at one of the highest levels in Finland. Was becoming a professional football player a childhood dream of yours?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I always been the kind of guy that when I do something, I really try to do it at my best level, and it was actually pretty decent also. So maybe I had potential to go professional. I had two pretty bad injuries, which were at like a pretty bad time when I was like 14, 15. Which turned out to be pretty much the end of my hopes, I guess, because once you miss that part of the career, I guess, then others just get too much further from you. And after that, not really. But I mean, I would have loved to play professionally. But I mean, these days I'm kind of happy I didn't chose the path, because I have a lot of friends from that team actually who are either playing professionally or have played or have tried it out, and it's a very, very hard environment, especially in Finland when you don't get so well paid in the only league that we have, and it's hard to break to the other leagues and divisions. So yeah, I'm kind of happy that I didn't go for that route, because it feels like even though you can do everything right, it comes down to a lot of luck as well.
Yeah, that's actually pretty interesting. Actually, I wanted to touch on the topic of luck. So we touched on this a little bit sooner than I actually initially intended. But throughout this conversation that we had with also other guests, like obviously luck is a topic that's often brought up when it comes to poker, and especially in the short term, you know, we can all see the luck factor. But when we talk about medium and long term, there's actually quite a lot that's actually under your control in poker compared to, for example, football, where, like you said, you could have an injury set you back, or the coach has to like you, has to play you, right? You're very
Yeah.
dependent on these kind of things. You know, you peak at the right moment when the right scout is on the bench and he's like, "Wow, this guy looks pretty interesting." Or, you know, maybe you were actually sick that day, you know? So there's many factors that are out of your control. How do you see the impact luck has on poker mid long term?
I feel like it has short term, and I would say there's like probably the best players, or the guys who could have been the best players, might have actually quit before they had the first bits of luck, just due to not running well in the beginning. And I feel like if you play for a long time, you will always have that piece of luck. But sometimes in the beginning it's for sure a factor where I feel like people are quitting or yeah, decide to do something else because they don't get the results or they start doubting themselves too much. And um, yeah, I think it's a big factor. And I was obviously very happy, like very fortunate to run super well in the start of my career, which gave the people around me kind of a boost. I guess that I'm doing something which is fine, but not everyone gets this, and I feel like that's more important than just binking or stuff like this. But it comes down to actually a very pretty like deep-ish level where you kind of need the luck just to show people that you're on a path of doing something which can be okay.
Yeah, and that's when for example the people around you see that like, oh, he's actually doing well, you might get the support, which when there's a period where it doesn't really go well, at least you have the support around you, right? Whereas if they say, yeah, I told you this wasn't working, you might quit. So it's like
Exactly.
there's indeed a huge compound effect. Same what you said, like an injury at your age, 14, 15. If a 14 or 15-year-old has 1 year more progress than you, that compounds over the long term, right? I think I read this in, I think it was the Talent Code. I think the name of the book was, where they were looking at. I think it was a hockey league in Canada where almost everyone that was in the league was born at either January, February, or March or something like that, and that had something to do with, at that moment that they scout, those kids were like 1 year older. And if you think about the physical advantage you have as a 6-year-old compared to a 5-year-old, that's pretty big. So it started with a very, very, very small advantage that they had, and therefore they got trained 4 times a week instead of 2 times a week, and that from there then compounds. You see like the same in poker. That for example, you already said like a setback in the beginning. Obviously, if you just started to try out poker and you go on a worse bet run for the first 3 months, you're like, this game is no fun. I'm out. Do you feel like there's a huge compound effect in, for example, you play MTTs, if you make certain bings early or at the right point of your career?
Yes, for sure. I mean, I actually don't know if I would be a poker player if it wasn't for COVID because I'm such a social guy that for me, sitting five is like 6 to 7 days a week on the computer for longer periods and kind of skipping the social life in a way would have felt very tough. But with COVID, for example, it gave these restrictions where you're not able to go see your friends, and every restaurant closes at 5. And I actually think if it wasn't for COVID, I probably wouldn't be a poker player because I wouldn't have made the initial sacrifice to just kind of throw everything out and go fully deep dive. And this is also kind of luck that I found the right thing in the right spot, and also ran well enough to show my people around me that this is something that I could possibly do for a longer period of time as well. And this is, I guess, not the standard luck, but it's something I've thought of. And I think it comes down to very small margins, and uh, that's just how it is.
And I think COVID also not the worst time to get into poker. If you looked at
Yeah,
average, the
exactly.
average ROIs, the average win rate in cash, I know I think it went up with somewhere between 25 and 40% or so. So in terms of also, right, the profitability and the chances of you going in a bad run that will basically, you know, kind of kill your dreams early on, right, of becoming a poker player, those chances then also diminish. I do want to say that uh while obviously, we can get lucky, I feel like the skill is that you're able to play long enough to cash in on the luck, sort of, right? So I think like longevity is probably the most important skill if we think about, or at least, what falls under the umbrella of longevity, right? The habits or routines. So that the time when you get lucky, that you're still there, right? That you're still
Yeah,
grinding, because you have to show up.
exactly.
You have to show up to get lucky.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I said that I feel like, some of the best players we could have had, we never get to know them because they quit too early. Um, that's my theory anyway.
So you do actually believe that there might be like the next the next Linus loves, or I don't know actually who's currently like the goat in tournaments, but like you would say there is a possibility that there's some guys that could have been better, but they just ran at like the worst possible run in the beginning, and therefore they just went to do other things.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can never really see anything in the first half year or year, and you need like a longer time to kind of start to develop and find the right people to mentor you and um, work with the right tools and kind of develop the right habits and I fully believe that there would be someone more talented that didn't break just because bad luck in the beginning.
I want to bring it quickly back to your football career. You mentioned you got this serious injury. How did you deal with that mentally? Was it like the first big mental setback that you had in something that you were going full on for? Obviously, poker very mentally tough as well with a lot of setbacks. Was this like the first time you had a big setback, and how did you deal with it?
I think it was my second time because I got a snowball in my eye when I was also like slightly before, which led to like pretty extensive operations to my eye and was gonna be, a lifetime where I needed to monitor the pressures of the eye and stuff like this. So I guess that was the first big one where, I mean, I never really felt like, okay, maybe I could go blind, but the worst case, I mean, that can happen, and I think it was throughout a period of a month where I pretty much had to use like the eye drops, which numb the eye a little bit, where you can't really see, and so I wasn't able to read or watch TV or do anything, which is kind of something that you appreciate even more. And I guess that was the first real setback, and also meant I couldn't play football. But yeah, I mean, then also the injuries. They were for sure big because there was like one in my foot, which they said that they would need to like open up the ankle, or yeah, which they don't do for people under 18 unless they like absolutely need to. So pretty much what they said to me was, you're gonna have to fully rest your leg or foot, and if it doesn't get better, then you need to start swimming or like doing something. Like you can't run or do anything with your foot, pretty much. So that was like kind of a big hit for me because I've always been a pretty athletic person and love to do sports, and I didn't love swimming too much, so I mean, I guess I would have tried it out, but uh, yeah, I was happy that I pretty quickly recovered from that one, or I mean, it took up to a year, but that I was able to recover from that one because it wasn't a certainty for sure. And then, unfortunately, like slightly after, like 2 months after I recovered, I got like another injury, which I had to proceed surgery, and then it was like I think I ran the same I ran before, like after a year or so, because it took me six months for the full recovery, and then another 6 months to like be not feel it when I'm running, and be able to run on my full speed and like turn as I did. So yeah, I mean, that was kind of a moment where I realized, I don't think I can become a professional anymore. So yeah, it was a setback, but I was never super down about it, I guess, because I was kind of just happy that I was still able to play football because that's what I loved, and it was never the priority to be the playing it for a profession. It was just doing something I enjoy, and I love to play and love to compete, and I didn't skip on that, even though I wasn't the same as I was before.
So the kind of the childhood dream of becoming the next. I was actually thinking about a Finnish football player. The only one that comes to mind is Jari Liedmanen. Maybe it's
Yeah.
before your generation. He's like the legend, probably, right, in Finland.
Yeah, I would say he's the biggest legend. Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
no one that really comes close to him.
Also, I believe quite injury prone as well, right? If I recall, because I'm Dutch, right? And he played for a very long time in Ajax, probably where he played his best football. I think afterwards he went to Liverpool. If I
Yeah, I
recall.
think yeah, probably. I know Hyypiä was in Liverpool at least, but I'm not sure about Litmanen. I'm not super familiar with his career. I knew he played for Ajax a long time.
I mean, we have a little age gap going on here, right? So when I was younger, that's when he was like at his peak. So when did poker first started to uh, draw your attention? I see you were 14, 15, you covered 16. I think you started playing poker right 17, 18. COVID is
Yeah,
what, 4 years ago? So
yeah, it was like high school first and second grade, I think, when we started to play like home games, completely basic poker, $5 or €5 sit and go, where you just, I don't think the blinds were going up ever, and completely basic stuff. But that was kind of the first, you know, um, enjoyment of poker, seeing how quickly 5 to 6 hours can go, and how nice it was to get up your stack and don't have to rebuy, and be in that three left or whatever, having fun with your friends. Yeah, it was just a great time. um so that was kind of the first touches into poker. um then I found Twitch streams where they were streaming like online poker on Poker Stars, and I was playing some play money games. I started to play, I felt like I was playing the same games as the streamers. This was kind of like after our home games kind of died out. I was pretty much the only one of us who continued to play, and then progressively started to play more, and yeah, at some point started to study, and yeah, now we're here.
So if Jari Liedmanen could have been an example for you in football, who was like an example for you in poker that you could kind of role model, right? Like, okay, this is actually something that you can do for a living, and I can actually become very successful at. You mentioned like the Twitch streams. Was there anyone in particular that stands out that gave you like sort of a roadmap of like, oh, actually, this is kind of a good path for me to take?
Yeah, so I remember watching, I think it was Spraggy's streams and Finton's streams. They were doing, I think at least Spraggy was doing a bankroll challenge at that point. So it was like kind of more than just playing tournaments, but there was also like the journey and the path to follow. Someday he had 2K, and someday he just ran deep in a tournament and cashed for 4K and had 6K and was able to play bigger buy-ins, and this kind of a normal path, but this was something totally new for me, and it was kind of like a Netflix series that you're watching, because there was like a storyline behind it, and I think the production was really good in that. So it was like really nice to follow, because every day I came home from school, I knew what his, or I looked what his bankroll was and how he's doing, and that kind of aspired me to also start to on the same path, and like start kind of with a bankroll build, or however you want to call it.
So you saw kind of as like a challenge because, like you said, right, you played home games, and at some point, the majority of your friends were like, "Ah, this poker thing was fun," but you remained interested. What was it about poker that fascinated you?
It's a good question. I've never really thought of it. I guess there is just like, it goes in so many levels, and there is kind of no right or wrong in the spot. And it can be very intuitive, and can be very psychological, and also very theoretical. Like, you can be two completely different persons and be good in your own ways, and yeah, it's kind of, I don't know if there is like a certain thing that blew my mind, but I guess the ability, or like the open mindedness of it. There's just kind of a lot of ways to approach the game, and one way doesn't have to be better or worse than the other.
What made you see like the depth of the game? For example, when I started to play with my friends, and probably a lot of your friends felt the same, right? There's like a lot of luck involved. I have good cards, but what made you see, like what attracted you to the game? There's a lot of more deeper things. What made you see the depth of the game?
I think it was just like playing so much. I think I'm pretty decent at like finding patterns and getting sense of things, and I kind of, when I was playing so much, I started to sense the spots where people are kind of doing this, and where people are doing the other thing, and this was kind of like, I guess for me, you know, really nice. Like, I've for sure punted off so many stacks, experimenting things. But once you experiment, you get better, and you start to see the things that work and the stuff which doesn't, and it gives you kind of the freedom and the fun into it. You don't have to feel bad about doing something wrong. You just have to do it better next time and realize what's working and what's not.
What are some of the most punty things you were doing?
What?
What were some of the most punty things that you were doing?
Um, I don't know, like just completely blasting off some spot and or calling with eighth pair or you know there is like I don't have a good example, but I'm sure like people have seen hands of me which are not great, and I'm open to it. Everybody makes mistakes and plays hands badly. Otherwise we wouldn't be human. So yeah, I
So
don't.
like the way you like to approach poker nowadays, like you said, a lot of like trial and error, try things out, not be afraid to make mistakes, just go for it.
I wish I kind of did more, even more like try, but I feel like I've played so many hours already now that you know uh, I feel like most of the stupidity is kind of fell off. But I mean, I still do stuff that is not great, and then but often the stuff I do kind of starts to work because you've so many hours these days that you kind of have a sense for what's working and what's not. So I guess something that you could have considered stupid 5 years ago might not be stupid these days, and I feel like I'm a lot more kind of, or how do I say, I'm more open to myself trying out stuff, and I'm just kind of not afraid to do something if I feel it's correct. And there might be a hand which someone else thinks I played badly or whatever, but uh, I've kind of the theory with that. If someone would ask me about the hand, I would always have a reason for why I've done it, and it might not be a correct reason, but it's the reason of why I've done it. And I feel like this is the case with almost every player. If you look at a hand history, black and white, it might look super super punty, but there is a reason why people are where they are, and there might be deeper levels into why someone has done something. And I feel like it's always nice to try to see what the other person is thinking and why he's done certain things.
Yeah, and especially always from the outside looking in, like you said, if you just look at the black and white hand history, you don't know what has been going on intuitively. You don't have the history. You're not in the situation itself, right? You look at the hand history purely from a rational perspective, but you're there, you have a certain new intuition come up, you have a certain view about the situation, mixed with like the rationality that we can also project, right? Looking afterwards, but we don't know what was going on in that moment, right? Except
Yeah.
sometimes where you can make pretty big deviations. You mentioned that you started kind of your own bankroll challenge. What were your expectations? Were you like, okay, I'm gonna be pro, or did you see it more as like
No.
a little challenge video game type of thing?
Yeah, it was just like, it was something I enjoyed. I never thought I would make money with poker, but I just love to do it. Think I started with like 20 euros and something, and like 11-cent games, and someday I had 19, someday I had 23, and then gradually moving up, and I was just enjoying playing. The stakes didn't matter for me, but I enjoyed running deep in a tournament, or making the straight flush or my first royal, or stuff like this. The completely basic stuff. I really enjoyed you know satelliting into a 4 euro tournament, and then one tabling it for a long time, and getting a bounty for 1 euro, all this kind of stuff, huge for the bankrolls, like challenge. And yeah, I just enjoyed the ride, and I feel like that's what you kind of need if you want to succeed in poker, because the emotional swings are so large that if you truly don't love, or if you truly don't love the game, then the worst periods are kind of gonna break you, I feel like.
Do you still apply this kind of, let's call it gamification of poker up until today? Like, do you still build little bankroll challenges for yourself or goals like that? Especially maybe
No,
in periods where you're maybe a little bit less motivated.
not really, unfortunately. I guess it's more of just like try to get better, and kind of just boring study, and play the games, and um, still try to improve every day. But no, maybe I should think of something, but I haven't really anymore.
Poker is obviously very, very complex. You did seem to see the depth of the game, right? Straight away from the beginning. You also mentioned that you like to try hard things. What makes you like to do hard things? What makes you like to compete? Where a lot of other people, they're like, "Oh, this is too hard. I'm out." You know, people usually like to look for shortcuts, the easy road. What makes you like to do hard things?
It's a good question. I think I think you just feel so good if you succeed with something, and if you put your mind into something, you have a pretty good chance at doing so. So I feel like it just comes down to your own like how you approach things and believing in yourself, and we can often do a lot more than we think. So uh, I think I even should push myself more of very often. Like I still don't think I in certain areas do it enough, but we can all improve. So yeah.
You're an MTT player, which I would say is arguably one of the more harder forms of poker you can choose to play. Was this a conscious choice for you to play MTTs? And if so, what attracted you to MTT specifically instead of, let's say, for example, cash games?
Yeah, I mean, it was always gonna be MTTs or something because I feel like cash games are more of kind of more theory based and involve a lot more studying, and you can kind of get complete because you play the exact same stack size. You think of stuff in buy-ins. You're never really. I mean, you're gonna have big days and you're gonna have losing days and stuff, but I what I really enjoyed about tournaments was the kind of the journey of how a tournament starts, and once it reaches close to the money, and once it reaches the money, once it reaches the final table, this kind of stuff, and adrenaline, if you can call it that. I don't think you can get it in cash games, so for me it was just a pretty natural choice where you got the spark of running deep, and yeah, that's what got me to play tournaments.
You like the story behind it, right? Especially if you like to watch Twitch streams, like Twitch
Yeah,
streams as well. MTT is just way easier to market, right? To pick up top, and there's a lot of excitement. Like you said, you tune in, it's exciting. Where cash game is a bit more boring.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
We mentioned you mentioned in the beginning where we talked about it. Uh, that results help in terms of convincing your environment that this is a good idea, and then your environment will support you more, which helps you sustain downswings. When did you first have your big score or like your first big success where you could show to your environment like, hey, this is a great choice, and I'm going to become a professional poker player?
so it was like the same COVID year. So I finished high school. I think it was in around April or May or something like this, and pretty much like that year, I was kind of already playing. Like most of my other friends were kind of studying for the finals, but I had struggles with Swedish. So I speak Swedish, both Swedish and Finnish, and I went to school in Swedish. But Swedish, like the writing part, was so hard to me to a level where I knew I pretty much wouldn't get in with my papers to the university that I wanted. So I would need to go and do the tests to get in anyways. So my only objective for high school at that moment was to graduate, which I kind of felt like I wouldn't have any issues even if I didn't read for the finals. So while my friends were reading for that, I was just pretty much playing poker, and uh, yeah, it was. I ended up graduating as well. But yeah, I was playing poker that year, and then after I got done, it was the COVID year. So um, start of 21, was gonna go to military, so I had like a half a year of a period where I pretty much didn't have any obligations. So I was just playing poker, and around that time, it's actually a pretty fun story. As Poker Stars made like a pretty big mistake. They had a satellite which had 20 seats to a 1K, which was gonna be a 109, but they made it a $11 buy-in. So I had a 30 ABI or 40 ABI or something like this at the moment. I've played one 500 tournament previously, and I hopped into the $11 satellite and won like a flip final 23 and got the seat, and it ended up overlaying like 16 or 17 seats, which was like, I mean, yeah, it's a big mistake for them, but I was happy to get into the 1K. And then, I'm a $30-40 ABI player, and I get into a 1K, which is my first, and I obviously want to try to sell some action. So I hit up my friend who I've known for a long time and was like, yo, you want to buy some? And then he was like, yeah, I'll take a small sweat. I'm sure others want to buy as well. And I was like, okay. And then second hand, I'm playing that tournament. I get into spot. We were still playing like 100 peaks effective, where um, I needed to hero call my entire stack, and I knew it was a good spot, and I wasn't just gonna fold because it was a big 1K, and I hero called, and the guy was over bluffing, and I ended up having a 2x stack and way too much of myself in that tournament. I shouldn't even be playing, and then I ran deep and ended up dropping it for 62K, which was like a massive for my bankroll at that time, and at that moment, my parents and brothers were watching it from downstairs, since PokerStars were doing kind of a coverage stream on this one. So they were 30 minutes late, but they were watching it from downstairs. And still remember it was really fun, because when I made the FD, I was like 8 out of 9 or 9 out of 9 with the short stack, and pretty quickly ran it up and was like chip leader. And was I still remember it. I was so in the zone. I made kind of a notepad for my buy-in, because I always keep my kind of the lobby open so I can see the prize money. But I made kind of a notepad for this one. So when the win was like 65K, I made a notepad where it said the win was 6,500. So I kind of had like the smaller scale of the payout structure next to me, and I was never thinking even about the money in that moment. I just wanted to win really badly. And remember, like, I was really happy with how I played. I was completely playing my normal game, and yeah, that was kind of the first moment where I got something really big and really a kind of a fortunate experience.
You mentioned that despite your being, you had way too big of a piece of yourself, you're playing completely out of your bankroll, the highest stake you ever played. You still managed to pull off that hero call. You managed to play your A game. Is this a skill that you think you have, that you possess even up until today, that, you're just able to perform well despite the financial pressure? Obviously, throughout your career, you started to play for more and more money. Do you still possess this quality?
Yeah, I would say so. Because I just I kind of have different goals, if that makes sense, in poker. Like I really want to one day be the best. That's still my goal this day. Like, it's obviously very hard in a game where, especially at this level, it comes down to a few big scores and few good runs in big tournaments. But I mean, my goal is still one day to feel like I'm kind of not completed it, but I'm there, and feel maybe that requires me to run good and being something. I don't know. It's really hard to justify what it comes to, but my goal is still to continue to try to work as hard as possible. I mean, these days I'm also trying to have a healthy and balanced lifestyle more than what I was, and it's something I value a lot more. The freedom which poker gives you. I think you should kind of take aware and still try to enjoy your life, and see your friends and family, and it's a priority for me also, which has come quickly. So it's kind of I still try to become as good as possible. So yeah.
What do you think is still missing? You said that you're trying to become the best. I think in the MTT world, you're definitely already considered a very strong player. What do you think is still missing? Is it like a couple of big scores that you can say, okay, well, now I've had these big scores, but in the same time, the big scores, there's also again some luck involved. So it's obviously always very hard to objectively say who's the best. For example, in cash games, we recently had like a world championship where the guys, they battled it out for like a month and a half. And even there, you could still say, yeah, it's the form at this moment. Some people couldn't show up. How do you think is the best way to measure it, and what is still missing for you?
So I think I always have two parts of myself. I have the brain and then I have the heart. And the heart is for sure saying that, I need a few big scores. That's kind of the one thing that, if that would happen, then I would kind of feel like, okay, maybe this was it. But then the brain is like, maybe we're somewhere close there, and maybe, we're never gonna really be there, or we're never gonna know if we're there. But it's also something that, if you kind of feel like you have this goal, then you're gonna keep pushing as hard as possible. And maybe it's better to actually not reach it ever. Maybe it's just better to have as a motivator to go. I know that when you go on these big hitters, and especially at this stage, it will for sure lead to a burnout and many months. Maybe you don't even want to play poker anymore, and you know, I don't know. It's very kind of hard question because yeah, I don't think there is a right or wrong, but um, it just I guess like it's a pretty nice goal to have, because as long as you never reach it, you're just gonna keep pushing yourself as hard as possible, and continue to improve every day in a way where you feel like you have to be a little bit better than the others.
I feel like a big goal, like I said, it doesn't really matter if you reach it or not, but at least if you set that big goal, you're gonna try to think, okay, well, what should I do to try to reach that big goal, right? So it raises the necessity, it raises your creative thinking. If you think, okay, I want to be profitable in poker, well, you're already profitable in poker, so then you're just gonna lay back because you've reached your goal. But it's like, oh, wait, I'm profitable in poker, but I can become even better, right? I want to become the best. Then how do I do that? So you start to dig deeper into yourself, and then you will usually see that you're capable of way more than you initially thought before you set a big goal like that. Now, obviously, becoming the best again, it's not an easy thing, but you like to do hard things. And speaking of hard things, you mentioned military service. As a Finnish person, you have an obligation for military service. Where in your poker career were you when you had to start military service, and how did you combine the two?
So this was actually like the yeah the year after the COVID year. So I was pretty much right after the 1K. I mean, funnily enough, even before I went to the military, I also had a, a really big score in 500. So I kind of got those two, which kind of boosted myself a lot more into going to the military, and kind of knew that when I got back from there, I would have a chance of trying out poker, with the support. But yeah, I mean, I got a lot of questions, and a lot of people told me that, this is a really bad time to go because you're really breaking now, and it's not gonna work out for you, and you should just keep doing this. And but I don't know. For me, it was kind of more of a thing that I wasn't like, all of my friends were going, and my dad has been, and everyone else's dads have been, and it's a thing that we do as Finns, and um, it's how we're able to stay kind of protected with the big neighbor that we have, and still having one of the strongest militaries even with our small population. So it felt like more of a mandatory obligation. I would have felt badly for myself if I didn't go, and I was happy to go, and it was also a moment for me to uh, get more healthy again and get back into the healthier lifestyle, because the year before, when I was just playing, I was ordering food twice a day and not really sporting at all. So I got into, for sure, the worst shape of my life, which I've ever been. So military also, gave me opportunity to eat healthy and work out every day, and do this. So it for sure gave me qualities that I'm happy that I did, and I'm also yeah, happy that I went.
What's harder, surviving a scoop grind or a 48-hour army leadership drill?
Scoop grind.
Scoop grind is tougher.
Yeah. 48 hours you're gonna be done with it, but you have to scoop grind is hard because you have a month, and and you're gonna play a lot of tables, you for sure somewhere at the third week or so you're gonna start to play bad, and how do you like how do you know which days you should take off, and how are you gonna like it takes so much stuff that's like mental. In the army drill you're gonna do in 48 hours, you kind of gonna focus in stuff. It's okay to make mistakes, but you know, on the scoop grind, if you're playing a spot badly, you're immediately gonna get punished by one of the best in the world. So you know, uh, you're not allowed to make mistakes, and you need to be as prepared as possible. And it's also like, yeah, yeah, I would say scoop grind for sure.
I mean, obviously, the army does push you both physically and mentally. Do you think your experience of this year in the army did help you become more resilient, I guess? Do you think it helped you as a poker player?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I felt like I've kind of always had it as a decent quality of myself, but I still feel like it showed me that I have it and have it in me, um and it gives you kind of a it gives you yeah it gave me a lot mentally and physically to be able to kind of battle through the hard periods and know that there is gonna be a better day coming.
What was the hardest moment in your 1 year in the military?
Uh, it was for sure like these trainings where you were in the forest for like intensive periods. I mean, I remember like the even during the first month you're in, you're gonna be like 5 days in the forest, and it's gonna be like -30, and you know you can't go inside to take a shit, you know, and all like the basic stuff is gone. You know, you don't have happiness really. Like you need to find happiness from the meal that's served in a, you know, I don't know how to say it in English, but like the can and stuff, you know, they bring you food in like the big cans, and you need to find happiness in that, and happiness from friends, and you need to try to, you know, uh, yeah, find the happiness in the very kind of uncomfortable situations. So it's still like those periods when you're kind of in the forest, you know, and have nothing or need to be awake. You sleep 2 hours and you're in extreme conditions. Uh, it's those when you're kind of pushing yourself to the very limit, when everything feels so disgusting and dark, and then you still need to try to find the energy to push yourself forward.
How do you find that energy in the dark, and how do you remain happy during a scoop grind that doesn't go your way?
Scoop grind. Good question. I think like the best part is support from around, and already when you go into the grind, you know, you need to understand that you can play as good as possible and still lose or still win big. You know, there is never gonna be a certainty of you know uh, a preparation being good enough to where you're just always gonna win or always gonna lose, or it just comes down to a lot of very small margins. So yeah, I think it's important to kind of work on the preparation and just more so be happy with be happy with the preparation, I guess. That you can feel like you wouldn't have done anything before or during at any point like differently. So and then I guess when time comes, you know, you need to start to learn to listen to your body and mind, and when you're gonna be fatigued, and learn to take the days off, and you know, not force yourself to play, and this is quality that comes with time as well, and something that I'm trying to work on still. Like it's very hard to understand. For example, if you've slept a little bit badly, and that are you gonna be ready for a 13-hour session or whatever.
I was gonna say you probably have quite a lot of scoops or similar series under your belt. When did you learn that this was the right way to approach it?
I don't think I've even learned it yet. You know, I've done a lot of different things and tried different stuff out and had a lot of different results. You know, sometimes you feel like you're playing good, and then after the scoop, you look at your own stats and you see like you've done something completely silly like all the time, and it's very hard to be kind of rational in that moment, and kind of I feel like the serious grind just kind of gets to you at some point. Like you're kind of so in the zone that you're just kind of doing what you think is good, and then yeah, I think it's important for sure when you go into a grind to at least have confidence. I would say that's the most important part. Like I would rather have a lot of confidence and even be playing some spots badly than just lack confidence and not being able to execute what I think is good.
How do you cultivate confidence?
I think playing a lot and then studying. Those are the two easiest ways to kind of improve the confidence. Like when you play a lot, you start to get feel for things, and that is gonna be confidence of being able to execute. And then when you study, you see what are theoretical outputs, and you're gonna be more prone to executing well in game, because you know that like it's the best feeling ever when you've looked at a spot and you actually know how it's supposed to play, and then you're operating in that sense so with so much confidence, because very often times you're gonna be um, better theoretically in this spot than your opponent, and then once you see your opponent make mistakes, you can deviate hardly from that, and you know that okay, he should be using this size. Is there a theoretical exploit that he's trying to do, or is there an exploit why he's trying to check raise me for a smaller sizing, or is he just misplaying the spot, and what kind of range do I need to defend, and all this kind of stuff, uh, kind of information gives you confidence, I would say.
Yeah, it sounds like the knowing aspect, right? If you understand the game better, that gives you confidence, but also the proven aspect, right? You said grind a lot, gain experience. Maybe also where you said earlier, I like that, like you have the brain, which is like the knowledge, and then you have your heart, which is the experience, right? That you can trust yourself because you've put it in practice. And actually, one point that I would like to add, and then I'm very curious for Adam's takeaway on this as well. Uh, you mentioned like aligning the expectations and sort of like a level of acceptance, right? There's some empathy in there as well, that you're going to screw up, the grind is hard, you're going to make mistakes. And I feel like that's a very vital part to stay confident, because you can go in confident, but if things don't go your way, or the scoop is a bit more brutal, you can maintain that confidence by having aligned, by having prepared in the correct way, right? Before that you aligned your expectations. You're gonna screw up. It's gonna be hard. Adam, what's your take on this? I'm sure you have a lot of experience talking with players about these problems. We already touched on a couple things. Anything you would like to add?
Yeah, I think expectations are an important one, especially for MTT grinders. You guys have the excitement of potentially life-changing money on the line, and it's very easy for that excitement to get carried away, and also for your hopes to get dashed. 1 minute you're chip leader, next minute you're bust out, and dealing with that kind of roller coaster on a kind of moment by moment level is not always easy. So I think the best players are able to reset expectations in real time, or not have too high expectations to begin with, and focus more on performance than the outcomes they're trying to get, which again, very easy to say. But in the midst of a deep run, it can easily get carried away in terms of, yeah, getting too excited, and then you're going to come crashing down most likely when you're losing big pots or your expectations aren't getting met.
Big shout out to our sponsors. First off, Coinpoker. Coinpoker is one of the fastest growing poker rooms in the world right now. In a world where sites seem to care less and less about the players, Coinpoker is showing good promise, listening to the community, and provide a safe and sustainable playing environment going forward. Join the action and get 33% rate back and 150% deposit bonus using code TMOP, or register using the link in the description down below. Next up, GTO Wizard. If you're looking to level up your poker game, let me tell you about GTO Wizard. It's got everything you need to improve, whether you're just starting out or already crushing it. You've got tools like the Hand History Analyzer, GTO Trainer, and even custom drills to help you sharpen your skills and make smarter plays. It's what so many guests that we have had on use to dominate cash games and tournaments. Get started for free and get 10% off your first purchase using the link down below, gtowizard.com/mechanics. If you sign up, you also get access to the weekly coaching webinars where you can learn from me and other great coaches. So looking forward to educating you guys over there. But without further ado, let's continue chatting with Casimir.
So you mentioned you're coming out of the army, so I just want to piece together this kind of career path for you, and you were already having success in poker prior to that. When you came out of the army, did you go straight into being a full-time poker player? And if you did, what was that transition like?
Yes, so pretty much after I came from the army, that was gonna be my plan. I was still living with my parents, but I can't remember if it was actually like pretty soon in the during the like next month when I came from the army where I moved on my own or not. It might have been a year or it might have been that I can't fully recall. But anyhow, yeah, my plan was just to play as much as possible. So I mean I was putting in crazy stupid hours at this time, like 6 to 7 days a week. Pretty much whenever I was home, I never had an off day. I was just always on my computer and pretty much always playing as well. Like I was never really the biggest solver guy. I just enjoyed playing poker. Like that was something that was close to my heart, and I kind of feel like I get a good sense of what's happening once I play a lot. So I feel like my greatest strength is also these days when I'm just been grinding a lot and start to get feel for things. And yeah, I mean, the only thing that kind of changed was I was trying to be more healthy and work out and eat better when once I came from the army, because I realized that there is not gonna be another army or not another, like now it's up to me, and I need to do it properly this time. And yeah, I think I've succeeded as well as possible up until this point at least. But I feel like it's something that I'm always gonna prioritize, especially knowing how I felt like right before I went to the army and how much better I felt when I got off the army. So um, yeah, I kind of yeah, I would say kind of just hopped straight into the grind, but tried to do it the right way.
You mentioned you weren't in great shape or health going into the army, and you came out of it understanding your health and fitness a lot better. I'm curious to know what the specific training looks like in the army. From the outside looking in, it looks like a lot of physical drills. Is there some sort of education you get in how to eat, how to look after your body, and what are the main kind of takeaways that have stuck with you from your military training to your life after?
So I mean, I don't think we really get much education about it, at least if I'm thinking. But I mean, the greatest things is like they have people who look after the nutrition. So you're eating, I think it's 4 times a day, and you're eating food which is very healthy and has the right nutrients, like right amount of protein and stuff. So you're gonna be eating very healthy food, and then you're also gonna be training like 1 or 2 times a day. So I mean, those are the basic two things for a healthy lifestyle, in my opinion. Like good food, like good healthy food and training. So um, I don't think it's much more rocket science unless you want to like dive into a very deeper level. And for me, like I guess at this point of life, I don't think fitness or sport is ever gonna be like onto that deeper level. But I'm always gonna try to be a little bit more healthy than the average person, and just gonna try to have it on a good average level where I can consider myself, healthy. And that's something I'm valuing more than knowing what my body fat is, or not being able to eat this or this because I'm on this diet, but kind of just having the very basic stuff under control.
Yeah, it's always training for purpose. So you're always trying to figure out what am I trying to train for. Training for the military is very different to training to play online poker, but there's definitely a lot of carryovers in terms of what healthy looks like, how to eat the right foods, what you need to do for your body to make sure you're feeling energized and good health, not putting on weight, and having the right kind of physique for what you're doing. For you, is there anything that you do on a regular basis that you learn from the military? Any sort of training for your body, or any food practices that could be interesting for the audience?
Yeah, it's a good question. I actually wouldn't say there is almost anything, because I mean I might have tried some stuff during the path, but these days I've kind of found out a way which works for me pretty well, which is that I'm on a pretty low calorie diet, I would say, during the time when I'm grinding. So I eat breakfast and then I eat one warm meal uh, during my grind, and then I eat kind of something before bed after. So I mean I eat pretty low calorie diet when I'm grinding, and then I'm kind of, I guess, not having cheat meals, but I'm able to eat whatever I want during the days I don't play. And for me, it's a working concept at least. I don't really track my calories. I don't know how much I should eat or shouldn't eat, but this at least feels like it's working for me. And yeah, I mean, whenever I'm eating during a session, my only objective really is to just get energy to my body so I can push through the grind. And I prefer like pretty much anything simple but healthy food. And like, yeah.
One thing I see as a challenge you might have went through is coming from the structured military experience to being, let's call it unstructured, in an online grinding. If you could look at the extremes of life, one would be the military and one would be maybe sat at your computer doing what you want. How did you start to create your own structure, your own discipline around your online grind? And was there any challenges with that?
For sure, a lot of challenges. I mean, I would say like the first challenge was once I started to know that, maybe grinding 6 to 7 days a week isn't really the smartest thing. Like, it's healthy to have a day off here and there. And kind of something I still struggle with is, having a normal day off. Like, um, because I've never kind of had these days off, and then especially during the hours I'm working and the hours I'm living in Finland, most of my friends are having their own lives during the weekdays, and this means that, with my rhythm, mostly when I wake up or I would be ready to do something, they're starting to go to bed and preparing for the next day. So there is for sure a lot of struggles and stuff I'm still figuring out, but you know, there's always ways. Like now, for example, later this week I'm going to Canada, where I'm gonna be able to grind when I wake up in the morning, and I'm gonna have time after my session, and I'm gonna. I used to love the fact that I wake up in the morning and kind of start to, even though you slept not so great, you would get more and more energy when the grind progresses, which I feel like is natural, kind of in that sense when you're living the normal hours. But when you live this kind of hour, then if you sleep badly and you're not fully doing everything in your way of kind of preparing for the session, then you can just 3 or 4 hours into the session start to feel like fatigued and not being able to think clearly, start to get more frustrated, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's still a learning experience and something I try to do better, but I mean, I'm learning.
So for you, what have you found to be most effective? I speak with a lot of poker players who are in the same situation as you, struggle to take time off and days off. They know it's good for them, but the thought of having a day off poker feels so boring. And what would I do? Before they know it, they're doing a big study session or the back grinding, or they'll have a few days off and feel the torture of doing nothing and soon think it's not good for them. So for you, what's worked best in terms of how often you think about taking days off, and then some things you do to utilize that time, maybe socializing or finding ways to spend that time in good ways for you?
So I mean, for me, like the 100% best thing is to not be near my computer, because then I'm not able to play. So uh, going on a short holiday, or going to friend's cottage and completely do something from out of the norm. And I feel like after, or always when I come back from these, like I'm so kind of into the grind and I'm so excited to play and I'm so kind of focused and I'm so recharged that I always end up having the best results always after as well. But I mean, eh, completely here in my normal rhythm, I don't really know what would be the best. Like I still struggle to having complete off days, even if I'm going on a hockey match or going to eat dinner with my parents. I often end up coming home and seeing, okay, there's this tournament I can play still, and do something when I come home, because as I said, like people end their days at uh, 10 or maybe latest 11, and I'm going to bed at 5, so I still have a lot more time, and I'm not just gonna watch the series for 5 hours. It feels so boring. So I mean, maybe from time to time, but there is still something that I need to do to get my time going, and it's something I enjoy. So yeah, maybe the right solution is to not live in Finland, but yeah, we will have to see how I do with that.
Have you had any big burnout moments where you maybe pushed it too far, didn't listen to warning signs, and kind of made yourself grind too much?
Yeah, I don't think I've had like a proper burnout, but I've for sure been very close. I would say I was pretty close also like a month ago or so, like a few weeks ago. I was just pretty much grinding through the whole winter. I mean, I had a decent downswing like the year before, and I had some really good results during that period. So I got something in return, but that was kind of the moment I realized that I will never grind 3 4 months in Finland in a row again, like during the darkest period, because yeah, it's just like you're completely focused on the playing, and you don't see almost any sunlight, and uh, you don't have a big social life. I mean, you have like you get to see your friends and family maybe once a week, but you're really focusing on the grinding. You're not gonna drink. You're not doing any kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, um, uh, it's very hard to kind of say the stuff in terms of that. But yeah,
Well, yeah, it sounds like you've done a good job of avoiding any big burnouts, but you've
yeah,
had the warning signs. And I think balance is such a hard topic to talk about, and it's very boring concept for most people. But it's finding that kind of sweet spot for yourself where you can push yourself hard, but also recover from it, and then listening out for those warning signs where you're pushing things too hard for the wrong reasons, not listening to those. Yeah, signs that you should take a break, have a day off, and we all have those moments where we make ourselves do stuff. Other people within the opposite end of the spectrum where they can't work hard enough to need days off, but you're just from the earlier conversation, I knew you were more on the side of someone who pushes things. But yeah, I think for yourself, you've obviously found something that works because you haven't had any major burnouts. So for you, after you started back full time or you came out of the army full time, let's go for your career path. I think this is 2022, and you had a pretty quick rise to playing high stakes from there. Tell me through like those early days of playing full time. What were your goals and expectations? You already had a good bankroll after some big binks. Were you thinking you're going to be taking on the world, or how are you approaching this part of your career? What was the main kind of stepping stones for you?
it's a good question, but I remember like even though my bankroll increased drastically during those first few times, I remember my transition of like increasing my ABI was still very like gradual and kind of small during the steps. I guess I was still in a way in my bankroll challenge. So um, I mean, once I started to get results in the bigger games, then I started to add more some of the bigger stuff. And but I don't remember like when was the first time I started to play all of the very high stuff. I guess uh, I guess it just comes like you need to try out a little bit. Like sometimes you're gonna shot take this, and sometimes you're not gonna. But I don't remember like any big goals I set for myself. I guess it was more so just improve and play, and yeah, it was. I guess like no, yeah, I don't recall any big goals I set for myself actually.
You was living and breathing and getting
Yeah.
better. And it's interesting actually because yeah, we've had a few guests of this nature who haven't really set the big targets, but have got to the big destination. And it's been just from the process of gradually improving and day by day, just living that grind and study life and just trying to always get better. And very over time, that just progresses and progresses. And before you know it, you're playing high stakes and you're like, I didn't even set the goal here, but here I am because I've continued to get better. So 2022, there's quite a big year for you, and you had a really tough scoop and I know you were going through a big downswing during this time. So yeah, talk us through what it's like to play a series when you're going for a big downswing. Because I know these series are quite brutal in terms of how many days you're playing in a row. You're playing higher average buy-in. There's a lot of excitement because there's big scores. But when you're going for a downswing, maybe there's people around you who are doing well. Obviously, in MTT circles, there's not often people doing well when you're doing badly. How tough was it this period, 2022, when you were suffering for a downswing during that?
Um, that's a good question. I don't fully remember my complete thoughts, but I think the most important part is to probably play a little bit lower and not allow yourself in the possibility where you're able to lose the normal amount, and take the variance down from that sense already. That's gonna give you more confidence and faith, and kind of yeah. I mean, unfortunately, oftentimes this also kind of pushes the variance more because smaller fields have usually larger average entrance. Obviously, your ROI is still higher, but yeah, it's still gonna kind of take a lot of luck to also have a good series in those. But just I think it always, like, allowing yourself to play a little bit lower is something like an immediate thing which you can do, which is gonna let you feel more confident in the those games than what you normally would feel in the other stuff.
How important are the series for an MTT player in terms of making a break in your year? I hear mixed kind of thoughts on this. Some players like really feel like they're super important. Other players just grind through like as normal volume. For you, how important do you feel like they are for you?
I mean, I I'm kind of two ways, so I think it's also the brain and heart kind of question for this one. Where my brain says, like, every reg is playing and most of the tournaments you're playing are very, very low ROI, and it comes to small pieces of luck if you're gonna have a good bad part. And then there is the heart, which is like, yes, I want to compete, I want to win a title. So I don't think I have an answer for whether they're good or not. I think I just mainly play them because I enjoy competing, and I enjoy playing versus the best players. I don't have a great answer of if they're like good EV or not, or if I would just be better off, taking this time a holiday and grind the kind of off serious, but also like this would kind of uh, put me away from my purpose of trying to be the best. Like, you don't become the best if you choose this path. So I kind of just play them and try to do as well as possible, and yeah, win a title.
Yeah, it sounds like you. Yes, you step into competitive mode and you want to prove yourself, but you also want to yeah, get some recognition potentially for the level you're at. So it feels like the series are an opportunity to kind of stretch that muscle, so to speak, to see where you're at, but also to potentially get a big score. Whether that's important on the long term, we don't really know, but we feel like the heart feels like that would be a good thing to achieve. So MTT is obviously very challenging in terms of the situations you find yourself in. So when you're playing final tables in big pots and you're under a lot of pressure, how do you personally cope with that? It feels like from your background, both in football and in the military, you might be someone who can keep themselves calm under pressure better than the average poker player. Obviously, for you, you won't be able to know this, but for you, how do you personally keep yourself in the moment, playing poker as a strategy game, rather than getting caught up in the large amounts of money that are available, especially at the final table?
So for me, it just kind of happens naturally. I'm kind of in a zone where I don't really care about the money. Like, it's something I don't even think of, because I just think of that I want to win the tournament. Like, uh, as stupid as it sounds, like, I don't think about the luck. I don't think about anything. I just think about executing the next spot to my best ability as possible. Um, like, for example, a fun story. Like, last week I was playing in Tallinn. I was playing my first 25K, and I was three-handed. Um, and I was with two players, which I consider one of them being better than me, and other one being pretty much same level, or like two very good players anyhow. And we were playing 13 big blind average stack, and it's a very top heavy tournament. And I needed. They were wanting to chop, and I was thinking 3-4 minutes, because I just wanted to ride it out, and my heart wanted to play so badly, because if you make the chop there, it doesn't really feel like you won anything. But then you obviously have to think about the fact that it's 13 big blind average, and you're playing versus good opponents. So essentially, you're just going to be flipping for large amounts of money. So uh, yeah, it's something I kind of just enjoy the journey of the tournament, and I enjoy winning. And I don't think I will ever change from that. Like, I will always enjoy winning as much as I do. I still celebrate every time I win a tournament, even if it's just a little fist bump in the air or whatever. Like, I'm still doing it. So yeah, it's always going to change, but I don't think I will change much.
Did you take that three-way chop in Thailand?
Yes, I take it. Yes, I took it.
The brain took over. Man, this makes sense. We need to
Yeah.
dash in here. Yeah. So you've mentioned a few times the journey of the tournaments. For us non-tournament grinders, take us through what the journey feels like on an emotional level. Let's say maybe Sunday grinds, and what are some of the kind of experiences, if we could summarize it into kind of phases of going through a journey of a tournament?
So it can start off, going badly, or maybe you get a double up in the very beginning, and then it's kind of, you start to get closer to the late registration ending, and you start to see yourself, rising up the ranks or going down quickly. And then you start to get into the phase where you're getting closer to the money, and this is already like small excitement. That's the first kind of major step you want to do in your tournament, because at that point from that tournament you've made some money. So first positive thing, and then after that it's gonna be the sale of how do I like build my stack to the final table. And then once you get there, the pay jumps are usually starting to be like pretty real in terms of how many players are in the field. And so there's kind of more excitement and more tension building throughout the run. Like I would say there is always a little bit more tension in the next time that you're gonna be playing in a tournament. So it's kind of just like more exciting because there's always some other factors you need to think of. It's not like as black and white as basic 100 big blind button versus cutoff 3-bet pot, for example.
That was great, that journey through a tournament. I really enjoyed like going through the phases there. For you, I was going to say what's your favorite phase, but I know it's going to be towards the end, final table, when the big money's there. Where do you feel like you have the biggest edge? Which part of the tournament, when it turns to a certain phase, do you feel like my strategy, my execution is ahead of other players?
I feel like my biggest edge is probably I would say like the more chippy phases. I think I'm pretty good in just playing poker. Then once ICM and other stuff comes in, these days especially, it starts to be very theoretical. I mean, there is still exploits that you're able to do, but it's, especially on GG Poker, it's a very pre-flop orientated game, and there can be people who just sit hours and hours in the lab, and even though they're not great at post-flop, but they don't need to play much post-flop in these structures. So it's also involved made sense for me to put a lot more work into a pre-flop and like the later stages. I was always studying that part also, but I think I'm kind of better with a big stack all the time. So I would say my strength is also to have the chip lead, or more so than being kind of a middling average stack, because that's gonna involve you to making some folds, which I normally don't like to do. You're gonna have to open raise tighter, and you're gonna have to. You're handcuffed in a way which I don't enjoy. Obviously less in Hold'em than, for example, Omaha, but yeah, I mean, in a sense, and final table removes the freedom which poker normally has, because you're not able to be as experimental or do kind of stuff like this, because there are certain like stupid boundaries that you kind of have to follow. I would just prefer to for it to be a little bit different, but this is the way it's gonna be, and this is the way it is. So
Got a solution for you, man. It's called cash games. No boundaries, no picking, You never have to do any folds, We can just skip pre-flop. We can just straight to post-flop, only post-flop,
I've thought about it, but I mean, these days, unfortunately, high stakes cash is getting a little bit more restricted, and I don't think it would really make sense to transition at this moment. Like most of the cash game friends I know are transitioning into MTTs.
Yeah, no, I
because
definitely see a brighter future, or at least it's a more growing format than, I guess,
yeah,
cash game for sure.
yeah, like so many bots and start to be pretty solved and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, I still enjoy tournaments a lot. Like, don't get me wrong, I like to study, but yeah, I still enjoy the beginning phases more for sure. And yeah.
So we talked a lot about the good side of poker and the good side of tournaments. What's the hardest thing about being a tournament grinder?
I mean, for sure the variance, I think, because sometimes you can play well and not get the results you're wanting, and sometimes you can play poorly and run really well, and it's hard to kind of be rational in these moments and be fully fully understand if you're playing good or not, and yeah, like the short-term variance probably, for sure.
Let's say you're on a bad run. and you're not getting the results you want, and the exciting journey of being a tournament grinder isn't in your day-to-day experience. For you personally, how do you keep yourself motivated and your confidence high during those patches? You mentioned playing a lot and studying a lot increases confidence, but also like results, I think on some level are going to back up that confidence. When results aren't coming, how do you personally keep your confidence high?
Good question. I think that's the hardest part of a swing, because there is no way that you're ever gonna have the confidence level that you normally have. You're always gonna be doubting yourself a little bit more. It doesn't matter how good of a player you are, I think. I mean, maybe there are exceptions in this case. I don't know, but I would say that you almost never have the confidence on the same level. So yeah, it's a very hard question, and I don't have a clear answer for this, but I just think that doing the small basic stuff, which can increase your confidence a little bit, is already like a major thing.
Yeah, I think it's just not having that major drop off. Obviously, there's going to be some deviations in confidence relative to circumstances, but if you can keep showing up, keep a level head, keep playing your strategy to the best of your ability, yeah, I think that's sometimes the best you can do without relying on being in your full A game every session you play. So around this time, or just after this time, you started playing the higher stakes games. When was the transition for you personally when you felt like now I'm playing these high stakes MTTs? And what levels in the MTT world classify as the kind of the jump to high stakes?
I think it's like I would say it's when there is like on, for example, on a weekday when there is no higher binds. I would say it's like the 500 1K ABI kind of tournaments. Like at that point, there is not much higher stuff. Like then there is 5Ks and 10Ks on Sunday, and obviously this is like these are the very highest stuff that you can find online, and that's like the next step from I guess the 501K daily. But I would say that's like that's when you're playing high stakes, is when you play like the 500s and 1Ks during a day-to-day basis, and you're kind of encountering the swings that already that gives you.
During this time, you had a minus 30K day. Do you remember that day?
Yes, I think so. Um, I can't remember if it was the day when I was playing. When yeah, it was a sick day. If it's the one that I'm remembering, it was I had two 10Ks open and two 5Ks or something. It was like a Thursday, series Thursday. It might be the wrong day, but I at least have one day which I'm remembering. And yeah, it was just, I mean, I was playing a little bit lower table count, but it was still kind of a good experience. And I was heading into the day knowing I will play these tournaments, and when you head into a day like this, you always have the like you're gonna like you play tournaments, so you're not gonna win all the time, and you're gonna lose a lot. So I was just kind of accepting of that, and yeah, I didn't feel bad afterwards, and it's just kind of part of the journey.
What's your process for accepting losses? I know it's easy to brush over that and go, yeah, I accept that I lose 30K, but I think a lot of players struggle with what it's like to actually accept. For you, what does that process look like?
Um, yeah, I think I just I never. It always takes me. Maybe like few minutes after the session, I'm still gonna be slightly annoyed or whatever. But there is always gonna be a next day. There's always gonna be a day when you can improve more, or play lower, or grind more, and like this like if you have correct bankroll management, this kind of loss is not gonna affect your life in any way. And if it does, then you're probably playing too high. So it all comes down to like. Kind of the preparation and your own mindset and your own bankroll management. And if you have these things under control, then losing even a lot of money doesn't like it's not gonna affect you. And that's how you should work at it as a poker player. Because like if you need to have stress about the money part, then you're gonna play like 1% worse or whatever, and that's already an edge you're giving away.
Yeah, and I think for you, just from this conversation, it's clear you pay less attention to the money and the outcomes. You care more about performance, execution, playing your strategy that best your ability. So obviously the money on the long term you want to make, but it feels like you don't judge yourself as much as maybe some other players do relative to the financial swings. So me and Ren have read over some of your blog posts before this conversation, and one of them you said, recently I felt like there's been too much poker, which has led me to playing below my best and getting frustrated more easily. You noticed this and you said, enough is enough, and took 2 full days off immediately. So with this, how do you spot these kind of tendencies in yourself that you're feeling a bit more frustrated? I think some players struggle with like spotting when their game's off, when things aren't going well. For you, what sort of process do you go through? Or how do you identify when you're not on your A game?
Um, it's like I think there is a pretty fine line in my game always, and even if I'm a little bit off, it usually leads to pretty big errors. It starts to be sloppy, it starts to be punty, and it's not kind of hard to identify because uh, I'm not as calm and collective as I usually am, and I'm kind of just doing stuff in a flow state, and then I go back to see like, did I actually like this hand or not? And um, yeah, there's like some small things that I think uh, develops a big picture, which is like, you start to get more annoying when you lose big pots, and you start to play kind of sloppy instead of thoughtful and wanting to execute at the best level. And yeah, when I see those things, I mean, it's clear that you shouldn't be playing, and there is something that's wrong, and then you just need to your best ability to find a solution to what is wrong. And usually, like a little bit time off does the magic.
You said picking a little bit off can lead to big errors. For you, what are some of the things you've noticed that lead you to be a little bit off at times? And how do you try to prevent those? Or when you do experience them, what are some of the things you do to recover from it?
I just think it comes down to the preparation. I try to be as kind of ready as possible for each session. So well studied and well rested, and been outside, and preferably done some sort of activity before. And then when I've these things right, usually it leads for me to be able to play my A game. And even then, sometimes you're just gonna be a little bit off and make errors. But at least when you do the preparation right, usually you have a greater chance of executing at your full potential.
Yeah, great. It feels like you've got a very standardized way of preparing yourself. And when you do that right, you very often end up in the right state. So it's easy for you to spot when that's not true or when you've deviated from that peak state, and you can make changes, take breaks or whatever to prevent that. Yeah, I think a lot of players don't think about their preparation in the way you have described it there, and they maybe haven't found that kind of sweet spot of how to prepare for the best. For you, anything you tried that didn't work in your preparation, experimentation? I'm guessing you experimented with different things. And yeah, how long does your preparation take before you grind?
Doesn't take long, doesn't have to take long. I think the main thing is like a good night of sleep, which I still struggle with. So many, like, for example, today I slept 5 hours. So I mean, I think after this I'm probably gonna take up a nap if I'm gonna play today. But today if I would play, it would be very flow. I would play probably good for the first hour, 2 hours, and then I would get into the kind of bad zone. So I mean, if I want to play today, I need to sleep a little bit longer, and then I need to go outside as well and get some fresh air, and eat something small. And pretty much, I think those are the main things, like good sleep, and so you feel recharged and you're ready for the session, and then fresh air and sunlight. Those are like the small main things for me, at least.
Yeah, great. And yeah, often it is the simple things done consistently that make the biggest difference. And yeah, I'm glad that you have found what works for you and you're able to share those so simply as well. So, as a poker player, it's sometimes hard to find the balance between striving for your goals and having a normal life and also being happy on that journey. For you, how do you keep yourself happy, feeling fulfilled on the journey to being the best poker player you can be?
I think it's just you like knowing what kind of person you are, and allowing yourself to make mistakes, and kind of do the stuff that you like, and still not like not kind of push you into spots where you're gonna be unhappy. Like I think I'm for sure happiest as I've ever been, and I've said the same thing for a few years, which means that I'm in a state where like everything is just working. So I'm kind of in the mood. Like I have my year also structurized in a way where I always like to grind the start of the year up until Scoop, and once Scoop ends, it's when my friends' holiday starts, and then I like to enjoy my summer, take a little bit chiller. I don't have pressure for myself. I'm not going to the WSOP. I mean, that's mainly for reasons that as a Finnish guy, I would need to pay taxes there, but still, it's not like something where I'm actively trying to, be. I enjoy the fact that I'm having kind of the summer easier. So I think it comes down to grinding in brackets where like you have enough time off and you have enough time to recharge, and then you also have like balance in your normal week. So you're talking to people, you're seeing people, you're doing kind of the social stuff, which is also going to help you to feel fulfilled and on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got a good system for the long-term planning of a year, but also the weekly kind of structure of how to find that enjoyment alongside the grind. Do you ever feel like you're sacrificing too much? I know at times like when I was grinding high volume, I sometimes had a conflict of, is it worth it? Is it worth like the trade-offs? Often when you're in the mode of grinding, you can override that, but sometimes you kind of zoom out and see your friends doing fun stuff, the things you're saying no to. Do you ever feel any conflict there?
Yes. For example, I feel like the worst part about a poker player is not being able to do anything on a Saturday, because that's, my friends have a kind of Friday, Saturday, and then no one is doing anything on Sunday. And on Sunday, I'm gonna be playing, so means Saturday I need to take it kind of easier. So I'm kind of sacrificing, 2 days for one day, and then usually it even these days, leads to some expectations on a Sunday that, you've prepared so well and you've sacrificed so much, but you don't need to actually, it's still a normal day of grinding, so you're prone to the variance and you're gonna very often have a bad Sunday. So it's like, it feels like you're kind of sacrificing 2 days for one, and I would prefer to have this kind of day on a weekday where, I wouldn't have the ability of doing something fun with my friends, and instead of kind of doing. But it's also like nothing can be perfect, so I think it's also a good trade-off for that you're just sometimes it's you're gonna feel this way, and sometimes you can also take it easier on a Saturday, and I don't think you have to play every Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah, I think life's a game of trade-offs, and we've got to align the trade-offs with what we think's most important for us at that time. And yeah, when you say yes to something, you've got to say no to something else. So trying to find that balance for yourself at the moment in time you're in, that works well. But it sounds like for you, there's no conflict there. You know what you need to say yes to and say no to, and you feel, yeah, although it's not great at saying no to Saturday nights, you feel very, yeah, confident that it's the right decision for you going forwards. So for you, I'm curious to know more about your approach to taking risk and how you manage your bankroll. I know as tournament players, it's probably the most complicated management of your bankroll compared to other formats, because you guys have so many different buy-ins you play, so much variance to think about. So yeah, for you, I think you mentioned in the questionnaire, you're someone who likes to play it safe, but you've also rose to playing high stakes very quickly. How have you thought about when's a good time to take shots at higher levels in your career?
I probably don't take enough shots, and I probably should be much more aggressive, but I feel like I'm in a state where, like at least financially, I guess it's a big thing in poker, but financially, I'm in a place where um, I kind of don't need more money. So I'm kind of in a spot where I feel like it would hurt me a lot more to kind of lose, and that would lead to me not being able to execute my kind of normal lifestyle and schedule, and being able to travel and these kind of happinesses that are part of my life this time. So I feel like the risk of heading there is too big, that I don't need to get to X amount of money as fast as possible. I feel like, even if I take it slow, I think just putting in the hours and the grind, eventually I'll be somewhere close to what I'm trying to reach. And yeah, I don't think I need to get there fast. Like, obviously, the struggle is the bigger buy-ins. Like, obviously, I want to play them as quick as possible. But for example, last year I was shot taking 10Ks very aggressively, and didn't go my way. And now I'm like kind of away scarred from that. So I'm kind of slowly getting into the right mental space of trying to play them more and more again. Where it's always I kind of always have this barrier to myself when I'm trying to push to the next tournament level. I remember actually in start of my career I had the same thing with, like, I think it was $22 tournaments where it was like on the first sample it was going so badly, and I was asking my friends, am I just not good enough to play these? And it is something I in a way have, because I still have like the competitive sports thing inside of me, where I'm not the most rational numbers guy, and going with a lot of flow. So um, uh, yeah, it's a lot of mental stuff that you have to deal with, and I feel like slowly getting into trying to and getting a score in those would be massive for the fact that you could add them more consistently into your schedule, which I'm kind of doing at the moment, and also learning that it's okay to sell bigger pieces to kind of be more okay with the variance part. Then yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, but yeah, I'd say those are the key ones.
You mentioned you have some mental blocks with some of those higher games. What are those mental blocks? Is it just the fear of maybe not being good enough to beat them, taking swings that maybe you don't need to take at this stage of your career? What are some of them you've run in currently, or you've run into at certain levels?
I think it's like noticing that you're sometimes not comfortable enough to execute something that you think would be the right move, which usually means that you're playing something that is too high. I don't think I have it anymore, but it's something that I for sure had, at least in the beginning. Um, and you need to think of it as just a normal tournament, and the players are the same that you play normally versus anyway. Um, then also, like, you get more annoyed when you bust. I remember my stretch when I was like bubbling everyone, and I was getting so much more annoyed than an average tournament, just because it was a 10K. I mean, I guess it's gonna hurt you more on average than normal, but still, it was hurting me more than normal, and I was feeling annoyed, and yeah, it's I don't know, like, I think experience and time, and this is like the best method of just kind of healing yourself, and it's okay to feel these things. It's perfectly normal. Like, we're all human, so I'm kind of not so hard on myself for making mistakes, or not feeling like I did something, but I'm just always gonna try to play it better the next time and improve like my mental capacity, and be more ready for the tournament the next time.
You mentioned you have a few scars from a few of those 10K shots. I want to bring up one of those scars and get you to relive it. There was a tournament you had on GG where you had a very big flip that didn't go your way. Could you relive that story and tell us what happened at that moment?
Mm, yeah, so I was 1 out of 13 with 1.5 million up top, and I was really in the zone. I had a spot, yeah, where I was very happy squeezing value hand, and I felt like with my chip lead stack and the player I was playing versus, I felt also that it's just an amazing spot to have a value hand. Um, the guy put in a decently light combo, and we ended up playing a flip for essentially the tournament, and yeah, didn't go my way. I still had a small stack, but I ended up getting 11th, and yeah, it was very disappointing, because if I make fifth or fourth in this tournament, which I pretty much always do, I guess, if I win that flip, it would give me a lot of confidence, which I kind of was lacking in those 10Ks at that point. At this point, I was so in the zone, I wasn't even thinking about the money, but I actually remember that moment, that the next day, even the next day, like, this was the first time ever happened, but I was like thinking to myself, like, damn, that was actually a really big flip. And even these days, I still think like how my career would look differently if that flip had gone my way, and like would I've completely um, like would I be in Jeju right now playing the Triton or whatever? Like very possible, but I'm also kind of happy that, you know, or I've understood and kind of dealt with it in a way where um you know, I feel like I'm gonna get another shot at some point, and I'm kind of still happy to be in a spot where um I'm like kind of doing the stuff, because I have a lot of friends who've won that flip and who've done really well, and yeah, as I said, it leads to like a lot of questions to yourself, and leads to momentarily happiness and then big unhappiness, and questions of should I be playing poker and then not playing poker, and then kind of lacking that, and yeah, I enjoy the day-to-day grind, and yeah, playing poker, so I'm still kind of happy that I haven't reached the final thing, because I mean, I feel like if, for example, if I win that tournament, then I think like in terms of online poker there wouldn't be much more to accomplish, I guess. So now I still have have like a lot more stuff that I want to do in online poker, which I mean, maybe a good thing, maybe a bad thing. But you know, there's positive sides of the coin always, and yeah, there's always gonna be a next time.
Well, yeah, you're young and hungry, and you've got plenty more time to get those big scores. But yeah, I can imagine in that moment, and even reflecting, it was could have been a life-changing moment. But yeah, I think sometimes it's not meant to be in those moments, and you're where you are in a great spot, and you have plenty more time to get to that pinnacle, or just keep chasing to try and get to that pinnacle, which you mentioned you're not even sure if you want to arrive at, which is always interesting about. Which point did you start mixing live poker into your grind? I know at some point you started playing some live stops. When did you start introducing those, and what was your idea with that?
Um, so I think the first one was, can't remember if I was 18 or 19. I was in EPT Prague. Super weird experience. I was probably complete opposite from everyone else, but it was so difficult for me. Like, you know, it felt like this big real thing. You know, everyone is staring at you where you're making your decision, and you have to actually know how much is in the pot and focus on all these other things that normally you just get to yourself. So it took actually a lot of time for me to get like comfortable. Like, I actually don't think I was a winning player the first year I was playing, just for the reasons that it was difficult for me to hide my tells, and knowing how much is in the pot, and knowing how much someone has, and all this kind of stuff, and like knowing how people play live poker compared to online, because I always was the guy that put in so much volume, and I pretty much had no volume, so I went straight from um, kind of where I've always tried to grind it up from the lower stuff, to went straight to live, not high stakes, but I guess the normal stakes that EPTs have, and try to be better. So yeah, it was a lot of learning in the beginning, and um, for sure wasn't so great, but I think I'm pretty decent these days, or at least like I'm getting better to hide stuff, and I don't think I'm giving away as much as I was back then, and getting more comfortable sitting at the table, and yeah.
What made you keep playing live during that first year? Because it sounds like it wasn't very enjoyable. You weren't getting many good results, and online was going great. What made you want to persist through that discomfort?
Well, for me, it's always like I think given at one point I said that live poker for me is more like just an expensive holiday, where I get to see the people that I work with, normally who are normally just screen names, and they're my like colleagues, and you get to see those people, hang out with them, and while still doing something you enjoy. So yeah, obviously I always also, even in that beginning year, I thought that, you know, maybe I'm just running bad, or I'm getting so unlucky, blah blah blah. I mean, I don't think it was the case, but you know, there's a ways of giving yourself excuses that, you know, you're just running bad.
So now, how do you think about live poker? Do you have certain stops that you like to play each year, and how does that fit alongside your online goals?
So yeah, I mean, I try to play live poker around 4 to 5 times a year. I don't really have like strict stops. I would love to get more into the high roller scene live. That's also a goal I have. Obviously, it involves kind of a lot of different study than what I'm doing. Kind of want to do a lot more big blind anti stuff and focusing on these low payout high rollers, which is like not something you do so much online. So there is kind of a different thing for that as well. But like these days, I try to play pretty much the EPTs since those are tax free for me, so they make the most sense. And I've figured out that for me, actually the best way is just to arrive for the main event, and then I'm gonna be fully ready, because I enjoy playing live poker in a way where I'm not on my phone and I'm kind of looking at every pot, and it needs to be exciting enough for me to do that. And if I'm playing like the Eureka 1K where you have 12 bullets available or whatever, completely impossible for me to feel recharged, and I'm gonna be burned out by the time I'm gonna be playing the main event. So, for example, like in Cyprus, I think I was there for the whole thing. I arrived in very early. I was playing like at the 10K in the beginning, then I got 14 to 12K, then I hopped into 1K, 2K. I think I deep ran the 1K. I got like 60th out of 5K people, and then I was playing the main. I think I made day 3 or day 2. And all these tournaments kind of in this long span was getting super deep. And then like in the 3K mystery bounty, which was like, it's one of the last events, I think, it was also like semi-deep. It was 30 left of 1K players, and then I just ended up misclicking, not seeing like an open, and jabbed in a small blind, thinking I was like first in with king 3 off, and I just ended up rejamming right into ace king and busting. And then I was like, yeah, it's probably not smart to come here for 3 weeks and, play every tournament with this much focus. And yeah, these days I like to focus on kind of executing as good as possible in every tournament. So I feel like the way I do it, I arrive for the main event and then I play the 10K high roller, and then I'm gonna be out of there.
Yeah, it sounds like you found that way to get the max enjoyment and also the max performance gains from a live stop. And yeah, you've kind of trial and errored a few different approaches, but it sounds like less is more for you. And playing those kind of high value tournaments when you're fresh and able to play your best seems like a good fit for you. Rene, do you have any live tournament aspirations? Do you want one of those pretty trophies? Any of those bracelets?
Hey man, the last live tournament I played at final table, it got third. So I'm quitting on my high, man. I'm quitting on my high. That's already from a few years ago. So no, I actually do enjoy live tournaments from time to time. I enjoy them more than online tournament. The last online tournament I played with, that's probably, I don't know, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, probably. Because at live tournament, I have time to sit there and figure out the game. Whereas online, I feel like I have less time to do it because I will also do other things. And on average, like in live tournaments, the average stack size, or at least the tournaments that I played, are always a bit higher, so it's a bit deeper. It's also like a fun experience. You chat a bit with the people at the table. I enjoy the creativity of it and solving the puzzle. I have time in between hands to figure out like, oh, interesting. What's my strategy going to be next hand? So I like it from time to time. Maybe like max 3 times a year, and so 3 tournaments a year, not 3 series a year. Okay, 3 tournaments a year, and then I'm satisfied. I was wondering, like hearing your story, and obviously we talked a lot about the variance. In the beginning, we talked about the influence of luck, right? Not only luck as a whole, but also luck in the right moment, right? As you mentioned, this huge flip. I saw in your blog in Finland, you call this a I'm gonna say this, omakotitalo flippy. What does it?
Oh,
What
yeah.
mean?
It means flip for a nice, what's like a nice house you've built yourself in a nice location.
A nice house you built yourself in a nice location. Summing up
Yeah.
is omakotitalo in Finnish.
Yeah, it's omakotitalo. Yeah, it's a house you built yourself. So
Nice.
essentially like a flip for a house you built yourself.
But
Well,
houses that you built yourself actually cheaper?
yes, but like having a house when you're living in a house that is like kind of separated from others, so it's not like a apartment house or this kind of stuff, I think they're on average. I mean, depends on the location, but I think on average they're still gonna be more expensive than the
Yeah,
smaller
and like a
apartment.
nice nature in Finland. Like I can see it in front of me. Okay. Well, I just wanted to have that clarified. So that's interesting to know. Uh how do you like this is something that I struggle with. I'm sure a lot of other people struggle with when you play tournaments, and you even mentioned it, right? That flip, it still went into your head, like the what ifs. How do you conquer these what ifs in your head when you play tournaments? Like, oh, I love my stack. Oh, what if I would have made this stack? What if this would? You understand? How do you stay present in the moment and not fall for the what ifs all the time?
I mean, you know, easy answer. I can think of how fortunate I am. How many people are encountering this flip when they're trying to break into the 500s in the 4K people 109s and stuff. I'm so lucky to be here. I'm so lucky to have to feel sad about that spot. Uh, it's very easy to be rational and think about it. Um, yeah,
Oh,
I've
it's a
had
perspective thing.
perspective. Yeah, for sure.
Actually, I remember I used, like I said, I've played very little tournaments, especially recently. But I used to always think like if I lost my stack, I would tell myself that I actually doubled my stack. So this was under the strategy of fooling myself. So let's say, for example, I had 30 and now I have 15. I would say that I had 7 and now I have 15. So I would sort of try to feel happy about myself, or I would highlight the strategical aspect that then changed. Like, oh, cool, now I can play 15 big blind poker. That's also fun, something along those lines. But yeah, I definitely think it's a good point. Perspective shift, and indeed realizing. I mean, this is I think works in everything in life, right? If you have a
Yeah,
setback or if you feel like unlucky, yeah, there's always people who are gonna have it worse than you. So yeah,
yeah.
perspective is key here. Um, you grinded your way up the stakes, starting with a $20 deposit. You grinded like the micro stake schedule, all the way to playing as high as 10Ks online and even higher live. Was there a jump where you felt like you were maybe not ready for this?
Good question. I think I've kind of been so careful. Like I remember when I first was starting with 10Ks and 5Ks, I was always playing the satellites. Actually, I think also my first 5K I might have ended up getting second in. Now that I think about it, and that was like a fun story where I got it in pretty good in on Sadie Bubble and didn't win. And then I was like, fuck it, I'll sell some action and play it anyways. And I guess it's just the moments of you feeling ready to play that, and then once you play that, then you want to show why you're playing that. And uh, yeah, I I was just able to play my own game in those moments. So uh, there's I guess there's a part of me that wants to prove to the players that I'm playing versus that they're not going to be able to run me over while still not getting into um, massive leveling wars or doing this like I guess yeah, where you're able to execute like, but you also kind of want to prove that you deserve to be there, if that makes sense.
No, it definitely makes sense. You also mentioned earlier about I think you mentioned it around Scoop series that there's top players, and if you're not, if you don't show up at your best, they will punish you in general when buy-in goes up, right? So also does the average level of competition. Was there a jump or a moment or a player that you faced in the field that made you realize like, okay, this is definitely another level?
Um, I think for sure at like when I was starting out to play the higher stuff, for sure. But like these days, I guess there can be few exceptions, but I think it also comes down to not having the that much experience and history with these players, because there is a lot of very, very, very good players that almost never play online anymore. And then once they come to play online, you haven't fully figured out if they're actually gonna be like this out of line in this spot. And it comes down to very fine margins. And if they are doing something which you don't think they're gonna be doing, then you're gonna be able to make some mistakes. But I think if you have enough hours with a player and enough experience with this one, then I guess there is like no particular player that I would like lift higher than the others. I just think there is a lot of very good players who are able to play very good poker from time to time, and they're continuing to put hours in, and they're very good. So yeah.
When you say that they're very good players, what is the skill set of very good players in MTTs that make them hard to play against?
I think, well, you for sure need aggression. You need to be able to make big bluffs, and I also think that you need kind of the open-mindedness, the ability to make mistakes, and or then you have the other perspective of the coin, which is to try to play as close to theory as possible. But there is also a lot of players who try this, and then they just end up being too passive in the aggressive nodes. So I would say, like, the players that are gonna be, putting you in tough spots, even though, you're gonna be, even if they think that you're gonna be calling, like, they're gonna put you in a very tough spot, and those are, like, I think I once said it is like, you want to be a guy at the table who you wouldn't want to have on your left, for example. Like, that's the kind of guy that you want to be on the table.
How do you become that guy?
A lot of experience, and a lot of studying, and then just believing in yourself, and putting people to the test.
Not being afraid, right? Is also what it comes down to. Because like something that stops people from aggressing is that they're afraid, right? Their mind
Yeah.
goes into the future. We talked a little bit earlier, right? How they stay in the now. Because their mind goes in the future. Well, what if it goes wrong? Well, perspective.
Yeah,
What if it goes right?
exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's like it comes down to very fine lines and margins, but yeah, I think it's important to be open-minded and try out stuff and believing in yourself, and do
When
those kind.
when you made the jump to, for example, the 10 case, how did you shield yourself versus facing this much aggression? That's definitely something a lot of players struggle with. That's also why being aggressive is usually a good idea.
Um, it's a good question. I don't fully remember, like, I guess what I was trying to think is I was just also trying to go deeper into the psychological aspect. Like, do I feel like people are gonna try to run me over or not? Like, what do they think? Are these the normal players I battle versus or not? And then you can get kind of an idea of how this guy is gonna try to approach your game, and yeah, then you can have a decent idea of whether your bluff catch is gonna be better or worse, and or uh, or what is gonna happen in that exact situation, for example. And also not being afraid to, like, make the good aggressive moves yourself.
So aggression, the best way to fight aggression is with aggression.
And good counter strategies, like, yeah.
What would you say is in your knowledge the correct counter strategy towards aggression?
Well, there is a lot of theories, or there's a lot of different correct answers. Obviously, you can tighten up and play stronger ranges, and then play those ranges more aggressively, or then you can also go deep into the trenches and try to soldier yourself out of the situation. Um, Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I would say the second option is the more fun one. Um, um, yeah, maybe there is some other options as well, but I would say those are the most common ones.
Yeah, and I would say I would add the worst one is, which I do see some people apply. They start going out in the trenches, and then midway they decide to go back to safety, which is probably the worst, because then you've already invested, and they have to see it. They have to see it through, because that's the moment where now you're gonna have to call down, and now you're gonna have to go for it. But then they bail out. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
I lost too much in the beginning, and you didn't gain the
Yeah,
benefit
yeah.
as you switch your strategy, you change your mind at the end. So beforehand, make sure to look ahead and understand what you're gonna expect and adjust accordingly, right?
Yeah, and for example, like in a 10K, this could be like my very base strategy was to be in the trenches a lot, so I could see myself like I don't remember if it was like that in the beginning, but I could see that it could have been that I was deep into the trenches, and then I wasn't like I was, for example, not ready to make the big call because I was afraid it's such a big deviation, and even though I like knew it was gonna be good, But then again, I said beginning in the 1K that I was able to do it, so I don't know if this was the case with me or not, but I could see it being the case, and yeah, it's for sure hard to know how you're gonna like react in a situation like that.
Yeah, so I usually give a similar advice. Say, listen, you can either go these both ways. I usually recommend to tighten up a little bit pre-flop flop because I feel like for most people this just works better. Uh, but obviously, yeah, just in general, you can also see, well, if he's really that over aggressive, then if you do flop a pair, we're talking just a pair, that value goes up, right? If you put it in the solver, he's over bluffing, then he's like, oh, I'm pretty happy with my fucking fourth pair here, so it's printing money, let's go. But it's very hard for the brain or for the heart, right? We talked the difference between the brain and the heart. The heart thinks differently sometimes. The heart thinks like, bum 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 bum. Hey, I have four pair. The guy puts a stack. What are we doing? Come on, back to safety.
Yeah, exactly.
Was there ever a time when you stubbornly believe something about how you approach poker or like poker strategy, only to later realize that you were completely wrong? And what changed your mind?
Mm, yes. I mean, I thought I was playing vanilla tournaments the best as possible. There was like, I think, beginning of last year was first time when they started to come with these half field left sims and stuff. No one really thought much into that beforehand. I was always kind of thinking that, uh, you can play pretty much chip EV, and then Bubble's gonna play a little bit differently, and then it's gonna be pretty chill again. And I mean, not chill, but up until the final table, depending a little bit on the stacks. Obviously, you're gonna tighten up a little bit. And then there also was, yeah, like I guess the uh, just of how like risk premiums work, and what the thing is with that, and something that I've kind of thought of a lot recently, and it's realized that I think the strategy I was applying last year is for sure not the most profitable one in those tournaments. Like you kind of if people are tightening up their ranges, and their 3-bet ranges become stronger in the first place, then you are gonna be losing money if you play your normal ranges. Like it's just a fact. So yeah, it was kind of just adapting and studying, and then I put a lot of work into those, and I think now I'm at a level where I'm at least happy to reg those tournaments again, and think I've improved again a lot in those.
Would you describe yourself as stubborn, or are you in general open for the idea that you're wrong about certain things and willing to change your strategy rapidly?
Um, Stubborn for sure. I'm gonna believe that what I've done is right, and it doesn't have to be right. But I'm gonna have very, very clear answers and thoughts about a spot, and then it's gonna take a lot of convincing. Like even if a very, very good player tells me like you should play this one differently, and then I'm gonna might just be like, no, I think like. But it's something I've learned during the years. Like these days, I'm also very much open that it's not gonna be so easy that you think, and yeah, I'm a person who always thinks that doesn't think that my way is right, but is maybe not so open to getting information immediately after.
What is something that you're convinced of that's the right thing, but your circle around you is trying to steer you in a different direction?
I don't think there is like a big thing. It's just like it can be some small hand, or some small thing, which is kind of yeah, which I would feel like my way is good, or it's good for these reasons, and then I maybe don't see it from their perspective enough to where I could see. Doesn't mean like my reason is wrong, but yeah, kind of hard to explain. But I feel like it comes down to small things. Like there's no major major thing that leads for this.
I would say sometimes it's also obviously you can explain certain things in ways that you to play the hand, but sometimes there's also like just a sort of feeling it's hard to explain to the other person looking in, right? So there's it's we talked about it earlier, right? From the outside in, it's always a little bit different to see the situation, but obviously it is very valuable, right? To talk with other players, get outside perspectives. Who's the one person? This can be a coach or friend or even an opponent who has influenced your game the most? And was there any specific lesson or concept that they taught you that completely shifted the way you approach poker?
Hmm. I mean, I would say the most influential, like it wasn't really a coach or anything, but it was Dan Smilkovic, legend of the game. It was in the beginning when I was playing like my 50 AVI or something like this, 100 AVI. Like he told me that, yeah, you're good enough to play higher, and then he was taking my action in like the higher stuff and constantly doing so, and that was like the first boost, I guess, for me, that where I understood that, yeah, like I got the confidence that I'm good enough to play the higher stuff, and then I also had some really good results. But if I didn't meet him at that time, like maybe I wasn't gonna play the higher stakes for like 1 or 2 years more. Maybe I would have taken it a lot slower. But meeting him during that time was also a fun story. Like the way we met was I had a picture of Jeff Gross holding a coffee cup on my PokerStars avatar, and then he copied my picture, and then I called him out for it, and then we became friends, and yeah, we talked on a daily basis, and both were grinding a lot, so it was kind of also a good kind of a balance where I was focusing a lot on ICM stuff, and he was pretty good in chip EV, so it was kind of a good trade-off where we were sharing knowledge in parts where we could both improve, and that gave me like a good boost in the beginning.
Would you say next to that is also you're already very confident? Do you think he gave you like that by investing in you, by believing in you? Think he gave you that last like extra confident boost needed, right? Sometimes obviously from our perspective we're good, but sometimes if we have someone that we look up to say, wow, no, you got this, that can be just that little push that you need in order to really go for it.
Yeah, for sure. I think that was the first big major thing. Like someone who plays those stakes was telling me that you're good enough, and that kind of gave me the push for sure.
What's the best poker advice that you've ever received? And when was the moment you truly understood why that piece of advice was so important?
Um, so there was one thing that really came up, probably forgetting something, but one really influential thing that I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. I was talking to Alex Kulev in Paris, and he told me that should focus less on like the recognition and the attention you're getting, and focus more on the friends and family and people around you, because the outside can always take the attention away from you, but friends and family will stay there for life. So I think it was extremely important for me to hear that back then, because as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old, when I was breaking into the scene, like everyone was always talking about me, and there was like big expectations and stuff. And then when you go into downswings and stuff, people are not talking about you anymore. And especially in poker, once you don't have few scores, people think that you're not good anymore. And it's a very, very like people love to be very results oriented in poker. Like once we have a player who wins 3 high rollers in a row, he's gonna be the best in the world. That's how it works. So
How did you
so I,
put that advice in practice?
I was just kind of understanding the the words and kind of understanding that there is gonna be a moment when people are not gonna be like this when it comes to the attention and talking, and then once it happened, it didn't feel like there was nothing different about it. I was still like, it didn't affect my life at all, because it was so important to hear that when I was so young and didn't kind of understand how it would affect me and how that kind of stuff affects you.
The meta in poker is constantly evolving. How have you seen the poker meta change over the years that you've played poker? And how would you describe the current meta in poker? It's obviously very important to stay up to date, adjust your strategies. So how do you think it has evolved?
It evolves like so much. I would say it's like every 4 months or so, like it's gonna be something drastic. It's pretty fun, but like if you're away for a little bit of time and then come back and people are doing something differently, you're gonna be losing in the beginning, and it's gonna take time until you figure it out. And then it always leads to this one thing where everybody's gonna be doing it, and then people are gonna be doing the counter strategy to that like all the time, and then it's not gonna be working anymore, and blah blah blah. So it's like it's kind of a fun journey, I guess. But yeah, like I think it's important to just stay present and try to play as much as possible, because that way you're gonna be comfortable and confident in what's happening on the tables, and gonna be able to execute well.
So what do you feel like is the current meta of online poker?
The current meta is still gonna have to be like the small 3 bets, like the way solvers are playing is like avoiding to be post flop pretty much in ICM, because post flop in ICM there's like a added premium, so you're gonna try to win your chips post like pre-flop, but then it's creating this situation where people don't understand why the small 3-bet is happening, or misapplying it in a way where now out of position can always call you, or they're not calling you enough because you made a small 3-bet, or misunderstanding the payout structure and like doing it in a wrong way. Like there is a super fine line, and it's very very hard to execute to like properly. Like even the very best players it's gonna be very hard to execute. But yeah, that's the current meta. Apart from that, I wouldn't think there is much, but yeah.
You mentioned that like metas usually evolve by countering the current meta. So knowing this meta, what can we predict the next one?
Mm, hmm. I think that's a hard question. I don't have a good idea in my head. I guess we're gonna have to see. Like, yeah, this current meta is very very just clicky.
So it's gonna be even more clicky.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. People are already like,
Either that, right? We talked about it. Either you fight that with more of the same,
Yeah.
so it goes more clicky, or
Yeah,
we go
I
back
mean,
and we start limping in the first place.
yeah. Example, like last week in Tallinn, my two good friends Otto and Teun were playing a 4-bet pot, 12 big blinds effective. Like, it's just fucking, yeah, it's silly stuff. It's just, yeah, that's poker. It feels like we're back in like 2006, but I mean, I don't actually know what it was like back then, because I was 5 years old. But I've heard that it was good stuff going on back then.
There was a lot of clicking. I mean, I was a little bit later, but I'm not that old. But there was a significant amount of clicking going up. I wanted to touch a little bit on like routines and on how you improve as a player, because the way you show up daily, that kind of determines how far you get into this game. You've gone pretty far yourself. What does a typical week in the life for you look like in terms of improving? So you mentioned, for example, I heard you mention the word study probably 4 or 5 times now. How does that look like in terms of your daily routines? How do you study, and how do you divide your time between studying and playing?
So funnily, I actually I might have like, I think I have a handful of just study days in the month. But I mean, these days I guess I have more, but I still enjoy to maybe just do 30 minutes before or sometimes even 1 hour after if I end my session earlier. Like I kind of enjoy to take it in a flow state where I'm not gonna ever sit at the computer for like 6 hours and just do studying. Like I think that would be boring. Then again, like I enjoy doing kind of effective or study for like 30 minutes or 1 hour. And the way I get better is I just save the spots that are tough for me and then I find solutions. So then at least my game is gonna be in a way where I don't feel, you know, I might be making mistakes, but I'm gonna feel like I know what to do in each spot if I start to plug these spots that feel hard for myself.
What for you has been the most effective way to improve as a player?
Um, Talking hand histories with friends, probably. Like getting a different output and uh, being able to say arguments for why this spot should be played otherwise, and like having a conversation about the hand. That into addition of looking at theoretical outputs.
Often these things go hand by hand, right? You have the hand history, and then you
Mm.
both look at the output. You try to interpret the output. You try to both kind of mix in your experience. How does a good way of talking about a hand look? Because there's Discord communities where they say full pre, and that's head of discussion, for example.
Yeah.
What do you think is vital to making uh, a hand history review worth your time?
I mean, you just have to be like open-minded, and you have to kind of realize that you know if the guy's gonna say fold pre, then maybe it's not a good guy to talk hand histories with if he's gonna have like this kind of attitude towards you. Like there needs to be there needs to be a good chemistry. It's a bit like it's like some other areas in life. Like you need to find a person or a group where you enjoy sharing your hands and um, enjoy listening to their outputs and think you're improving by listening and the stuff that they're saying is working and stuff like this. So like perspective is always almost always good, but um, I guess like yeah. So something like fault pre is just gonna be not gonna help you at all, and it's gonna be negative energy. Then next time you're in that same spot, you're gonna feel clueless again, and then you're like, well, I should have folded pre. No, I should or why am I still here, or something like this.
I feel like also people can get a bit too defensive sometimes about their hand. I feel like it's sometimes you want to listen to a person taking in their advice, right, and trying to understand people's perspective instead of listening already to kind of defend your own play. Like, hey guys, what do you think about this? But then basically you post it already with like full on, you got the bazooka with you trying to defend your point.
Yeah, exactly. And then I also remember from my career, I think the style I play is sometimes hard to explain, and even looking at it, but I would still say like there's a reason why I think it works, and there's some stuff at least I think I do well. So you know, I don't think I should massively change. Like I think there is ways I can get much better, but sometimes it's like getting like how to get the most out of a person and out or like what they're saying without taking it with full criticism, but also like being able to say it in a way. So I feel like I probably wouldn't be perfectly compatible with a player who's gonna have very super strong opinion, because we're just gonna end up having our own opinion and not really balance it out. But I'm more so gonna work well with a person who are gonna be a little bit more open minded and gonna have also own thoughts, and they're gonna say how they would play the situation. And I think that's always a best way of like also how you should discuss a hand history is you just send your friend a hand, and sometimes you put thoughts before the hand, but sometimes you just ask, hey, how would you play this? And then you get a full unfiltered answer of how they would play. I mean, sometimes I like to, even when I have super tough spots, I like to blur out like the hands so people don't know what's happened in the hand. Like, has he had a bluff? Has he, folded the river or whatever? Because I for sure see it a lot where people are results oriented, and it's very easy to do when you're looking at a hand history. Like, there's a fine line of something being stupid or genius.
Yeah, I like that. Definitely not showing the results. Or I might sometimes even ask, like, I would just almost remove my cards to say, hey, what would you do with it? Like, not necessarily the hand. What would you do with this part of your range, or what would you do with this hand? This hand, I think, would be very interesting, right? So not only looking at the actual hand that you played, but if you're trying to improve, right, and if you're curious, also you can play a hand, and your actual hand might not be interesting, but a different part of your range is actually interesting, right? Um, a lot of players, they want to improve, but there's so much to improve on. How do you determine what to work on and in which area you should improve?
Um, I think like the areas that you struggle the most with, and then obviously like the deeper the tournament gets, the more your decisions are uh, gonna net money or lose money. So, I mean, from a financial point of view, probably smartest to mainly focus on when the tournaments get deeper, but then you also need a good baseline strategy to um, get there, and you need to be able to play the early levels well, so you're not just getting run over. So it's a big puzzle, and all the pieces are somewhere, and you just need to find the pieces and try to build a picture.
You mentioned there that there's like a difference between a baseline to get there, and then obviously in the end is where it's more important, right? Higher EV spots, pre-flop ICM. When you say baseline, I think I heard you mention in the beginning that sometimes you take a whole study day or like you reserve that. When you talk about baseline, you're talking about develop like a strategy development, because we can study in terms of, the reviewing hands or going at a specific spot. But when you say baseline, do you mean like the process of like actual strategy building? Like, what's my overall strategy going to be in this situation?
Yeah, I think I mean just like the very ABC strategy, or you're not gonna be deviating much. You're just gonna play like kind of simple poker. The kind of poker where you would be a winner in a €5 home game. That's what I would
Mm.
consider like a baseline. Like, you're not gonna play stupid hands pre-flop. You're gonna realize what some like profitable shoves are gonna be pre-flop, and like some very basic stuff, and then you can just kind of start improving from that sense. And obviously, poker is a game of information, so the more you know, the better you're gonna be. And yeah.
How do you identify uh, and fix leaks in your game? You mentioned like something that something that you're not strong at. Uh, how do you identify what you're not strong at? Is it purely a feeling like, hey, I don't really know what to do here? Do you analyze your data, look for leaks? How does that process look like for you?
It's so I actually took a while before I even started to look at my own stats, but I do think these days it's a very valuable tool to see how I can improve my win rates, and see what I'm doing well and what I'm not doing well. Apart from that, I think also kind of you can look at your results, and I pretty actively tried to look at my results, and how I realized I wasn't so great in vanillas was, I mean, first I was realizing that maybe it's just variance, and then I took a deeper look, and like really started to bracket kind of the tournaments I was winning in and the tournaments I was losing in, and then started to work if there is like deeper issues in that. And I think I'm pretty decent at being like open-minded, even though I'm stubborn. I think it's cool for myself to, I'm very open to when I find something that then I'm gonna be like, I want to get better at this, and then once I see that, I'm gonna put everything I have into again, try to gain as much information and get as much better in that area as possible.
What's the area of your game that you've been focusing on recently?
So it's like the boring, stupid. I was gonna say fucking, but I'm not. But
We can
uh,
swear this podcast, man. We have no problem with that.
yeah, the 15 big blind average, pre-flop, 20 big blind average pre-flop, different like vanilla payout structure, just pre-flop stuff. I would just love to play more poker, but sometimes you have to be really sharp in the other areas as well. And I still enjoy looking at it, but I just love kind of battling and doing stuff. And once you're deep and there's ICM considerations, you're just likely gonna be losing your opponents and your money when you try to play the big pots and getting to the big leveling wars. And it kind of removes, in a sense, it removes the freedom that poker has, I think, for me at least. So
Yeah, I understand what you mean with that. Like also, like there's obviously the restrictions that, for example, ICM and a lot of other things in tournaments kind of put on you, certain stack size, you're often handcuffed. And then there's also the better or the more solid your opponents start to play, the more GTO their strategy is. At some point, there's like, oh, okay, I guess I just answer with GTO as well because, So I understand what you mean. Well, luckily in MTTs especially, I think there's still, so much room, there's so much variables. How do you, for example, you mentioned that you were studying 15 BB, 20 BB. Now, I don't assume you run, how much is it? 1700, 22 flops or something for all scenarios. How can we, what are like some study tips that you have and things that you've been implementing to make it a bit more, what's the word? Is graspable a word? If not, you
I,
just invented it.
I don't know. What I've liked to do to improve is also like I've been focusing still also a lot on the vanilla FTs as well, especially the higher buy-ins, and see how people are playing spots. And then I've also liked to save other people's spots and discuss them and look what theory would do in these spots. And yeah, it gives you good input of what people are doing and if it's correct or not, or just also kind of um, instead of just having my own hands from those spots, I've tried to gain more interesting, for myself, interesting kind of information that I'm gonna be able to also solve. So I've basically bumped up the volume just in this department, and that's gonna give me more study material. I'm gonna be more able to work more on that part of my game.
What do you think is an often underrated or overlooked way players can increase their EV?
Um, Probably just playing, getting a like feel for how the player pool is playing. Like sometimes playing the theoretical way is not the highest TV one. I mean, obviously, still if you play complete GTO, then yeah, you're gonna be the biggest winner. But there is like nice ways to get a sense of how the pool is playing and what is good versus a pool, which is, I think, really important as a player, especially if you like to grind a lot and also developing reads and feelings for your opponents and how to kind of how to exploit them and this kind of stuff.
Yeah, people often, just like yourself, right? You use a lot of solvers, outputs. That's kind of the main way to study. But what people now often struggle with is like, okay, we have GTO, but we also know that our population, right? Oh, they have leaks here. Kind of find that balance, right, between GTO and exploitive play. What's the best way to kind of translate the hours that you spent in a solver towards actual making dollars EV at the tables? How can people bridge the gap? Go from, okay, I looked at the solver and now I make a play at the table. How do people bridge the gap and find the right balance between the two?
Good question. I think there is a lot of different people. For some people, it's very hard. Uh, I know examples where people have been very super good theoretically, but then they all the time ended up making the correct theoretical play versus for example, the theoretical bluff versus the guy who wouldn't fold, or jammed the theoretical combo versus the guy who wasn't bluffing, or stuff like this. And then what helped these guys was always like the understanding that there is kind of a flip side of the coin, which is that you're playing versus humans and not robots, um, and you need to be kind of more accepting of the fact that how your opponents play and what their strategies look like.
Has there been a period in your career where you feel like you maybe went too much down the solver and theory route, right? If you put a lot of work into solvers, it's very easy to get stuck into the what would the solver do type of mindset, and then you kind of forget to gather valuable information. Like you said, that this guy is a big station, maybe we shouldn't bluff him. Very basic poker, but if you put too much time in the solver, you can sometimes forget that, and you're just like, oh, what would the solver do? What would the solver do? Has there been a time where kind of the solver hurt your game in a way?
I wouldn't say, because I was never like really the major solver guy, but I do think there was a time when I was trying to play a strategy when it would be like pretty much unexploitable, where I would try to have like good flop strategies where if you look at my database or like this, if you look, there would be no way to kind of exploit my flop strategies or my turn strategies or my river strategies. And then at some point I realized like it's important to have that versus the players who are um, good enough to exploit you if you play in a different way, but then it's also important to be able to deviate versus a player who's not going to be able to exploit you even if you deviate.
I feel like the most important thing to always have top of mind in every hand that you play is literally the first data point you have to think about: who am I playing against? Because who you're playing against, that will determine where in which height you have to think, right? In the past they used to call it leveling, right? Is he thinking level 1, 2, 3? Well, how GTO is my opponent really, right? Well, he's pretty damn GTO. Well, then let's also try to play pretty damn GTO, right? GTO considerations will matter. But if, like you said, this guy has a clear profile, then we probably want to play a strategy that plays into the profile, right? Because he gave us a certain incentive. How did you then recalibrate, and what do you feel like is currently the sweet spot for you?
I think it was just kind of experience and lot a lot of trial and error, and then realizing that maybe, you know, the way I was playing is not the highest EV, even though it's still good EV, and uh, kind of learning that there is no real boundaries in poker, and there is the freedom. You're able to do whatever you like in a certain situation, and that's kind of the beauty of the game. And I don't think you should like handcuff you to one sizing or one solution. But if you get like an idea in the middle of the hand, you're not going to be afraid to execute it if you think it's going to be good.
I really like that, actually. One thing that I dislike about people who, I think this is more true in cash, where you talked about like your baseline, building your baseline strategy, but you talked it as like just a fundament, and from there you start to play poker. Kind of that's how I interpreted it. But what I often see happening in cash game, at least, that people build a strategy and then they execute their strategy, and that's it. That's kind of where poker ends. But then where's the problem solving in game, right? Where is the deviating in game? You build this fundament to make sure that, you know, if you're fatigued, or, you know, if you're playing your C game, that at least the default where you fall back on is pretty decent, right? But from the main thing, from now we can actually start playing poker, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's that's the nice part about it. As I've said previously, for me, poker is just like there's so much to learn and so much information out there. It's just about knowing the information that you can then, you know, execute nice stuff in game. That's why I also enjoy live poker more these days, is because, uh, I mean, even okay, like it's still hard for me to know exactly how many stacks and remember like how many blinds everybody on an 8-handed table, for example, has. So there is like stuff how I'm not able to do it fully in the way which I would like, but it's still so nice to be able to just, you know, play one hand or look at like when two other people are playing a hand and see like, okay, what should this guy's flop strategy look like? What should this guy's turn strategy? What are his reasons for deviating? Ah, okay, it's probably this one. And then you see what sizings they're doing, and it makes the game more fun for you. And there's like so much freedom, and like you're open to do a bunch of different stuff, and you're not really handcuffed to anything. So you're kind of, yeah, you just have your own path, and you just can figure out what works for you and kind of go from there.
Yeah, you're looking at the game, looking for opportunities, right? And possibilities. Also in a solver, you can also look study solvers in a way that you can look at it, or you can look at it and see it more as like limitations, right? Like, oh no, I only have to do this, or now we can only do this. It's very depressing, right? I put it on a depressing voice just to make it sound prep. But like I feel what's the nicest thing about learning solver is that you learn about what's correct, and then we can learn about, hey, they're not doing that, so then what is the opportunity, right? That's what gets you excited about it.
Yeah, exactly. And then, funnily enough, like that's the correct theoretical answer as well.
Can you maybe provide an example of where you clearly prefer to take a more exploitative approach, and maybe a situation where you clearly prefer to stick to more, let's say, quote unquote GTO?
Well, for example, live poker, you're playing versus the rich old guy who's playing a tight range and doesn't like to fold. I'm the young Finnish guy, It's probably not smart for me to pull any kind of triple barrel bluff versus him. So I would just have depends on the situation, but mostly it's smart to have value in this kind of spot when you're playing versus this kind of player profile. So I think it's a very quick answer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Scandinavians, I think, will have a lower river bet success on average. I'm not Scandinavian. I'm from the Netherlands, but sometimes I could get confused. So I kind of also fall victim to that. That's very annoying if you play live.
Yeah, it's
Like, oh, well, you're from Denmark? No, I'm from the Netherlands. You can. I'm not Scandi.
yeah.
What are you already mentioned? Obviously, live poker. You can see you're at the table, right? That helps. What are other tendencies, tells, or pieces of information you like to look for to make deviations?
Mm, well, I'm deep into the psychological aspect of online poker as well. So, I enjoy timing tells, sizing tells, or looking for all the information I can get pretty much in hand. And I think there is so much more than people think. Like people think that it's not possible to make certain kind of reads in online poker, but I would say that. And a lot of people agree also that it's very doable just with certain timings and certain sizings and tendencies and history with this player, and there's so much more that goes to it than just a normal hand. And I think that's what really makes poker beautiful, is that you can play one spot, but you're never gonna play that spot same. It's always gonna be slightly different stage of the tournament or different opponent or whatever. So I think it's the fact how unique poker actually is what drives what makes it so interesting for me. You're never gonna have the same spot again.
If you're willing to look at it that way.
Yeah.
I have seen and also made myself some extreme adjustments over the years that I played poker. Can you maybe share a time where you picked up on a piece of information, some things that you just mentioned, maybe extreme sizing, timing, or an extreme tendency of your opponent that led you to make a very big exploitative adjustment? What situation comes up to your mind where oh wow, that was a very, very, very big adjustment that I made?
Um, I don't have a specific hand history in mind. I'm sure there is some somewhere, but yeah, I think it's been important throughout my career, and um, yeah, trying to look for all the information that you have during a hand is just very important, especially when you're, for example, playing that one last table. It's a good opportunity to, for example, not watch YouTube or whatever being on your phone, but just actually look for actively try to look what's happening around the table also, even though it can be boring, but it's information that can help. Um, actually, I have a good example now that I think about it. The 25K I was playing in Tallinn, I was playing the day one with one recreational the whole day, and there was one spot where, so he never bluffed the river, but one spot where he bet the turn for 33%, and then he basically checked back the river and mucked, so he was essentially bluffing. And he was also using larger flop sizes, so none of this 33 or 25%. He was almost always betting 50%. And then I got a spot versus him on the final table on like the bubble where 8 left 6 spade, where he was the covering stack, and it led to me, like, he bet 25 or 20% on the flop, and then he barreled for 33%. And it led me to make a decently big overcall on the turn, and then I faced a snap-ish check back on the river, and I was good. So, if I was not paying attention the whole first day, I would have folded the turn, and those chips are so valuable at that stage of the tournament. So, yeah, I mean, it's a small thing, but it can be really major in the last part.
I really like this, and I feel like the overall team, there's like curiosity, right, towards trying to find the correct play. There's looking at the possibilities. There's, just a level of excitement that I even get when we talk and hear how you're approaching poker, right? Look at it with the endless possibilities that it offers, if you're willing to look at it that way. So I hope that's a big takeaway from the audience. I wanna touch a little bit on maybe some tips for our audience. If you were coaching like a struggling low to mid stakes player, and let's say you had 3 sessions to help him improve, what key areas would you focus on?
So first, I would want to know more about this person and just kind of understand how he's thinking about the game and thinking about different spots, because that's the first big thing. Like, if he's thinking in a certain way, there might be easy leaks to fix in that sense. Then another part would be just purely trying to find some theoretical stuff that might be going, or deviations that why something is not working. And I would try to kind of get to know this person more, and then try to figure out how he's thinking, and maybe share some of my own thoughts and what are important for when I'm playing a session, and some of the stuff which I do, which is working. And then hopefully this would give like a good fundamental to moving on, and have that little bit extra confidence, or have like some more knowledge to execute better the next time.
Adam, you have done many, many, many hours of coaching, or like from a mental game, a performance perspective, like tips that you give low mid stakes players who are struggling. Remember, you only got 3 sessions. What are the key areas that you're going to focus on?
Yeah, so similar to Casimir's response of, first of all, understand the player. What are their unique problems? Often, a lot of players are going to run into some sort of mindset issues, often around dealing with variance, dealing with losing, and the emotional side that comes with that, especially if you're a low stakes player trying to get to that next level. There's often a lot of inner turmoil that you're having to experience and go through to perform at your best. So it's often removing the kind of lowest hanging fruit that's impacting performance, getting to understand what leaks they're having from my perspective and how to fix them. Then there's all the habits, routines, and things that go into the performance category. How do you get this player to perform at their best? What's in the way of them performing the best? As Casimir has mentioned, preparation that he dials in, very good. Most players don't. So they prepare very badly, and they don't understand what high performance looks like. So there's a lot of things to unravel. I think it's very hard to go, what are the 3 things? Because I do every session I have with a player, the first 20 minutes is tell me about yourself, tell me what you're struggling with, and trying to pick apart where they're going wrong, but definitely dealing with the losing emotional sides, and then learn how to perform their best are the 2 kind of categories where most conversations will segue into branches that spark from there. So I'm curious to know for you, Casimir, what do you think is important for yourself when it comes to being a high performer? What are some of the things that go into you making sure you can perform your best consistently?
So I think, as I said, it's good sleep, and that requires a good lifestyle. So try to eat as healthy as possible, try to drink as little as possible, and I think those are like the first 3 things that is gonna be a huge impact already. So I'm actually really excited now to go to Canada. I'm basically gonna go only for grinding. And I was in Costa Rica last year, pretty much the same time zone, and how energized you feel when you get to go to bed at 10 and wake up at 6 in the morning. It's like so insane. So yeah, I mean, for me, it's like so exciting to try that part again, and maybe I'm gonna try to grind from there more like more consistently.
Yeah, it sounds like for you, schedule is very important, and routine and being on a good routine works really well for you. And it feels like, yeah, there's limitations sometimes in Europe with the nighttime grinds. How much do you think that plays a role in terms of your ability to perform at your best? Let's say, for example, you're in Finland and tournaments are finishing at 3, 4 in the morning. How challenging is it on a personal level to perform at your best when it's really late at night and you've been up all day?
Um, so I would say it's very hard. Like there is gonna be, um, I think like 20% of my sessions are gonna be ones I like in some sense struggle with, maybe even more. There are gonna be some moments like it might take longer for me to get into the zone, but then once I'm there, then it's fine. Like thankfully, almost always when a tournament goes deep, I'm gonna be in the kind of the deep state of focus. Like even though if I'm not prepared the best, and but I think especially the most important part is for me the hour 3-4 mark, when you might start to lose few of the key all-ins and bust few of the exciting tournaments, and then you have like, for example, on a normal day, Tuesday or Wednesday, then you're gonna have few of the lower ones, and if you just don't care about those as much, or you just kind of want to bust them and go to bed or whatever, then you're gonna be losing a lot of money long term and a lot of EV. So for me, the preparation kind of means, or what it means for me is to be able to play like every tournament as unique, and try to focus even in the spots where things are not going my way, and yeah, try to execute at the best possible level.
What do you do in those moments when you notice you're in a rut? Let's say it's that 3, 4 hour mark on a Tuesday, nothing exciting's happening, you're busting out a lot. How do you kind of navigate those challenging hours?
So first thing I do is I stop regging. If I have some of the stuff I would normally play, not worth it. Shouldn't play any more tournaments at that moment. And then it's gonna be actively trying to focus even more in depth into those tournaments that I have on my screen, because if you don't, then yeah, you're just gonna make slightly too wide of a call, or you're just gonna make like the too thin of a bluff, or you just kind of actively get into the state where you don't mind busting a tournament, which I actually see a lot of really good players still having these days. I mean, also me from time to time, but it's a really big league to get into the state where you don't mind busting a tournament. Like you should never feel like that. And if you do, then that means something has gone wrong somewhere. So yeah, I guess what I'm trying to do is actively try to kind of find the solutions of how I figure out how it's not happening during the session. And for me, most important thing is sleep for sure. So if I sleep badly, then I know it's gonna happen just because I'm tired. It's a very natural thing. I'm not gonna be playing my greatest anyways, but I'm gonna be more frustrated more easily because I'm tired. It's a very natural reaction.
You mentioned actively focusing more. How do you get yourself to do that? Because I think this is an overlooked part of focus where people just expect focus to be there at a high level. But when you've lost focus, for you, how do you re engage yourself to focus more intently?
So, I mean, I'm just forcing myself not to do anything on the side. I'm not gonna be on my phone. I'm not gonna open my Discord. I'm not gonna do this stuff. And I'm just gonna sit there and see that when I get a spot, I'm gonna be like ready to play that one. And yeah, it's a really basic answer, but just not having any distractions when if I have those distractions, then I'm for sure gonna play the spot worse when it comes up.
Yes, it sounds like you're narrowing down a focus, removing distractions, maybe going deeper into the spots you're playing. Yeah, I think a lot of focus is about that. It's like almost like channeling in that direction of attention to something more specific and something smaller often to regain focus. So I want to ask some reflecting questions now for you, because you've had a very, let's call it short, but you might not think so, short but very fast rising career. So I want to know for you some of the kind of secrets that kind of rise. So why do you think you've been able to make it to the higher stakes in, let's call it 2 or 3 years, where many players get stuck for a lot longer? What's been the key to your fast success?
Um, Running really good in the higher stuff at very early. Like no secret. Like first 1K I played, really good stuff. Think first few 500s I played, really good results. That gives you the boost that you need, kind of. Uh, like I ran extremely well in the beginning. So I mean, that's for sure the thing. But I mean, yeah, it was never really about the money. It was kind of the passion I had for the game. So if you're gonna feel stressed about needing to get there to that stage and you not enjoy the process, then it's gonna be more miserable for you in the first place. And I guess I had also had uh, the fortunate situation of like not needing to pay my own rent or doing this because I still lived at my parents, which might not be the case for everyone. But still try to structurize it in a way where you're not feeling additional pressure because poker is so stressful in the beginning already. So kind of just try to be in a place where you're able to grind and enjoy the journey and embrace it.
Very humble answer. I feel like if it was just to run good, you'd have lost it back very quickly. But it feels like I know what you said in terms of the right timing. You got some good results at a good time, which kind of created a catalyst moment to move faster through the levels. Maybe you would have got the same level, just a bit slower if you had a worse results, or as you guys mentioned at the start of the conversation, maybe one of those guys who dropped out if it went super bad. Yeah, I do think there's a lot of moving parts there. So for you, what do you think is the most important lesson you've learned so far in your poker career?
Mm, Probably the fact that you can do everything right sometimes and you're still not gonna get the results you wanted. Applies for life as well. Like um, you just kind of need to understand that there is always a lot of moving parts and it's not gonna go your way all the time. And um, you just need to be open and kind of learn like yourself and try to kind of be ready for not disaster but ready for mistakes and also like almost be happy when you make a mistake because that's an opportunity to not make the same mistake again.
Few questions on that one. How do you make sure that you do learn from mistakes and that it becomes a moment to improve your game rather than just a reinforcing of a bad habit?
Um, yeah, you just have to be open to yourself, and once you identify a mistake, like really try to start to build different solutions of how to not make that same mistake again. Um, and that involves like studying the spot maybe, or talking about the spot, or going deep into your thoughts or thoughts of the spot, or why you're doing this kind of stuff, and how can you like build your thoughts in a different way of how you don't like make the same mistake again.
Do you feel like you learn from mistakes quite quickly?
Um, I would say so, yeah. Probably faster than most. Mm, I would say like the key thing is because I'm almost thinking of mistakes as a good thing to happen because it just gives you an opportunity to not like make the same mistake again. So yeah, I see mistakes more as an opportunity as like as a bad thing.
I like that. Yeah, the labeling of a mistake as a opportunity and a good thing. If you can actually have that as a kind of default, then a mistake all of a sudden doesn't create this kind of tension. I think a lot of players use a mistake to kind of blame themselves, to self talk to themselves in terms of I'm an idiot. Why did I do that? I should know better. When in reality, mistakes just a part of your game. It showed you a part you can improve on. Yeah, I like that labeling as a default. That it's a good thing. I think that would be a if many players could use that, I'm sure it would be very helpful for dealing with mistakes. So for you, we've mentioned confidence earlier in the conversation and your approach to gaining confidence. As you're playing tougher and tougher lineups, what gives you confidence that you have an edge in those games?
I think it's like being able to play my own game, and then also like being friendly with a lot of these people, and know that they kind of value you as a friend and value you as a player you play versus. And I think it's like a addition of a lot of those things that, you know, gives yourself the confidence that you need. Then it also comes down to studying, but you also kind of need some kind of extra thing other than just studying, I think, which is at least going to help you to feel like you're able to perform in those lineups, and not be afraid of doing what you think is good.
If we had to create a package of the traits needed to be a successful tournament poker player, this can be a tough question, but what would some of those traits be in that kind of package?
Um, should I say all of which come to my mind, or do you have
Please
like
do.
certain? Okay.
Please do.
I think first one is you're gonna have to love the game. There's no other way around it. Then you're gonna have to be willing to put the hours into the game. Then unfortunately, you're gonna have to do some of the boring study part as well. I mean, you probably don't even have to, but I feel like these days it's probably essential because, but like, for example, probably 10, 15 years ago, it wouldn't been mandatory. Like you could have just played and done really well. And I'm sure that's what a lot of people did as well. But yeah, those are first two things, or first three things. And yeah, then I would say like good balance, good mental game, uh, and like the balance improves your mental game also, and it's gonna be a way of coping with swings. Like for example, my last downswing, you know, when I was talking to my parents about it, you know, they were the ones that kind of, you know, motivated me, and I was very open about the money, and you know, they are the ones that tell me that, you know, it's gonna be okay, and it's just a short spurt. And that's because also from the beginning, I told them that, you know, this is how poker works, and I kind of was open about the structure, and they've been there from all my swings. Um, and yeah, it's important in a moment where you feel like you're not doing something right, or you feel like you're losing all your confidence, to have like kind of those people or bridges built that improve that. So yeah, like having a good fundamental around people around you, friends and family, to be able to deal with the bad parts, and also to be able to enjoy the nice, joyful moments of when you win something or do well. And like also comes down to life. I think it's like uh, good qualities to have. And apart from that, you know, yeah, I would maybe even say overall healthy lifestyle. But you know, it's not needed. You can be super good poker player and be unhealthy, but I would still value being healthy up there, because I would think even the very best could be better if they would be more healthy.
Great. Yeah, that was a very complete package deal. You did very well to get all this out. So you mentioned one of those being a mental game, and just listening to you speak for the last 3 hours, I've noticed a lot of good mindset skills you've developed, from perspective to acceptance to reframing mistakes as good things rather than challenges your games. How have you built your mental game? You had mentioned a few things along the way, but what have been some of the biggest things you've done to develop a strong mindset for poker?
Hmm. So my mother is a psychologist, so I think I've kind of gotten a lot of traits from her. So I've kind of always uh, been kind of. It's not like I've really developed many new skills, but I'm kind of able to think of life in perspective, which makes it like comfortable for me and easy for me. So as funny as it is, like I haven't really worked too much on my mental game, but I guess I just also understand that you know, the miserable parts are part of the game, and it's also part of life. Like, you know, if you would be happy all the time, then happy would be your baseline, and then you know, you the same happy moments wouldn't be as happy as anymore. So, you know, it's important to have both the unhappy moments and perspective, and that's how you kind of get the good like complete feeling, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think with your mum being a psychologist, you probably had lots of different perspectives or ways of thinking. built into you from an early age, where it just becomes second nature into how you think, that most people wouldn't be able to do. That's probably explained why you're able to do a lot of these high level mental game skills quite well. Anything you remember learning from your mum as a psychologist that you feel has been helpful for your poker career? I know this could be challenging because there's a lot of things over your childhood, but anything that comes to mind in terms of, oh, that was what you said there in this context actually helps me as a poker player.
Hmm. Well, she always had this one thing she said, which is carpe diem, enjoy the moment. Important thing for life, but also for poker. Like when you're going into a session, you have to enjoy it. Like even if it's just a boring normal day grind. Like if you're not enjoying playing, if you're not listening to the music you want to listen at that point. If you just go into the static, I have to grind. If you're gonna go with that mindset, you're gonna play worse. And like yeah, if you enjoy the moment, you're most likely gonna play better.
Which moments have been the most enjoyable of your poker career, and how do you make sure you keep that enjoyment for poker?
Um, I think it's for sure the highs of when you know I remember winning my first live tournament. This was amazing. I remember winning my first online tournament, running down from the second floor to the downward floor and telling my parents that, hey, I just won a $1 tournament for $146. Like, and I was so happy. Like, uh, yeah, I will never forget these moments. And it's all of the ups, being five-handed in a $3 tournament with over 1K up top and going 5 o'clock in the morning to the balcony to get fresh air and looking at the sky and like dialing yourself in really to the moment. Then last year when I was like day 5 of the main, I was just listening to music. It was almost like, I was going into this big final football game, I was doing all my preparations, the same thing as I would do to like really. And then when I'm going there, I'm ready to, make the most out of myself, and I'm gonna try to perform. And I feel like that's like the yeah, it's just kind of the enjoyment and the journey, which I really enjoy, and highs and downs as well.
I love those stories. And it feels like for you, a lot of the enjoyment comes from that ability to perform at your best and that kind of quest and that enjoyment of trying to bring your best game to the tables. And you sound like you're someone who can tap into that almost at will when you need to. Do you feel like that has been something you've had to learn, or have you always been able to perform well in high stakes environments? Has there been any examples you can think of where that wasn't the case for you?
Um, I feel like I've kind of always been that way, but I mean there is mistakes that I've made. I used to always be a really good penalty shooter, and then we were semifinals in a big tournament. I think it was in Latvia or something. I scored a really nice penalty versus Zenit for us to advance to the finals, but it went like really in the top corner, and then. I remember like straight before the penalty shootout, because we went in the final and we were playing the penalty shootout again. We got into that situation, and then one of my friends told me before I was going to shoot. He told me like, yo, you should maybe not go so high as you did last time because there's a risk it's gonna go like wide. And then I remember shooting like such a poor penalty just for the reason that I didn't want to miss it high. And that's for sure a moment where I mean the psychological aspect got into me, but you know um, it's all about learning and knowing also like even in that moment it's not necessarily my fault. Um, it's kind of we were young and you should motivate everyone like before they're going into this high pressure moment. And it's the same thing in poker. Like you don't want to hear or you don't want to get any big study advice before you're gonna go into a big FT or whatever. Like you just what I always do if I have like a horse or someone I have action off and they're playing a big spot, I almost never give them like any big advice because there's a reason why they got that far. And I try to push them and motivate them and make them believe in themselves, and allow them to execute their own game without like any other thoughts that come in.
I blame your friend for that penalty miss, by the way, you got in your head.
Yeah, but I still should have scored.
So with this, in terms of being able to perform at your best, we could just gloss over that and say, okay, it's just you're able to do it all you want. But I feel there's a lot of kind of hidden pieces that we could put together within this. So let's say you're in a final table. Often with that, you're going to have more adrenaline, you're going to have more cortisol for your body, you're going to feel different physically. Also, your mind's going to be more active, either good or bad, but a bit more dialed in. So for you, it feels like this allows you to channel into a very deep state. You mentioned going into a zone, a flow state. For other people, those same feelings in the body can overload them. They can end up like too flustered, almost anxious, and the same kind of chemicals in the body, they don't relate that to performance. So for you, let's talk for a recent experience you've had where you've been able to bring your best game to a final table. How does that feel differently compared to the early stages of a tournament?
I don't know. It's just something that kind of happens naturally, of like wanting to make the correct decisions when the tournament is deeper, and you're kind of forcing yourself to play the best game, but it kind of just happens naturally, just for the element that once you're closer to the victory, you really want to win. Like, I mean, even mentally, like if you're 50 left in a tournament, you're probably not thinking of winning it yet. But if you're 7 left, like you might start to think that it's possible, and even that maybe in myself leads to the way where I'm just like getting into the zone where I'm actively doing stuff that is gonna, in my opinion, help me to win the tournament. So uh, I wouldn't say I'm creating the environment where I'm thinking I'm gonna win the tournament, but I'm creating the environment of everything I do is helping me to get there, and then I'm open still to make mistakes or whatever. But I'm trying to kind of, yeah, work on every spot a little bit more in depth, I guess.
How do you strike that balance between self-belief that you're going to win the tournaments and not forcing things, not like trying too hard to win it? Because I know people listening to this might think, oh, okay, when I want to win something, I try harder. I make things happen. I make sure I am going after things. So for you, how do you make sure you're not forcing things?
Um, Experience. I mean, for sure was a time in my career when I tried a little bit too hard to win every tournament. I think it's part of the game. But it's also like finding, kind of the balancing things, and not, you know, uh, yeah, not going down the deep end. I guess it's very hard to explain what I'm trying to say, but for me, it's just trying to execute my own game, and like kind of studying what should happen in a strategical environment, and then look at my opponents, and if I have reasons to deviate from what I think should happen strategically, and then I come to a conclusion, and I just play like every spot I have into the best ability that I have. But I'm not gonna try to push like the margins to like super thin, where it's like so easy to make mistakes. But I mean, sometimes yes, but that's not something I'm actively trying to do to try to win the tournament.
Yes, it feels like you've found a way to just go into this state of high performance. You can optimize your performance. You think really clearly. You've got a clear game plan of what you're doing, and it doesn't feel like you overstep that into trying to make things happen for the wrong reasons. So yeah, whatever way you've done to get to that state, it feels like a lot of your experiences have probably helped with the football, the military, but also the fact that you love competition. And it feels like a lot of things come together for you to almost excel in those final table environments where other players might crumble. So you mentioned with Rene that you're quite stubborn. What has been something that you've had a hard time accepting that you're wrong at in poker?
Probably some hands of played. Uh, it takes time. Like in the beginning, it can feel like, because my opinions are always so strong, that it's like hard to maybe. But it also, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's like these days as bad as it was like ever, but I do want, like, if I just ask about an opinion and someone says like, yeah, I don't think this is good, then I want to explain like, uh, well, what do you think? Like, I really, really actively try to get a big conversation out of it, because I feel like the arguments I'm having is like pretty decent for that. And then I guess what annoys me is, if someone is just saying something is not good, and then not giving me like the option of them answering why I think this should be. I don't know if I answered the question, by the way. Like I completely sidetracked there, I guess. I might
Okay.
at this.
Yeah, you touched on why, like how you approach changing your mind, which I thought was pretty valuable. And it feels like for you, you have your own way of thinking, which is well thought out. So for someone to push back on that, they can't just say you're always wrong. They need a good counter argument. They need to conversationally speak it out with you and go back and forth to almost like a battle of ideas. Which idea
Yeah.
actually wins? Yeah, I relate to that as well. It's really annoying when someone just says something, they disagree on something, then you push them for their reasoning, and they kind of just throw it in your face and go, "You're just wrong." You're like, "Well, tell me more, like so I can learn." So yeah, it sounds like you relate to that as well, and you like to have those conversations so you can learn from it. So yeah, it's like a stubbornness, but also an open-minded way. So it's like you're protecting your viewpoint until someone can prove that their viewpoint's stronger, and then you're open to hearing that. So there's a kind of balance between those two, which I think is interesting. Rene, for you, you've had a lot of poker ideas over the years. Any that you've had to say goodbye to, which were a little bit painful?
Um, for sure. Like for example, I'm definitely old school, right? I played poker before solvers. So when solvers came in, there were definitely ideas that I had before that I had to recalibrate when solvers told me otherwise. And in the beginning, when the solver says it, I was a classic one, yeah, but that's a solver, that's GTO, blah, blah, blah. And to be fair, there were a lot of things actually that I was doing that was solver approved without having seen the solvers. But yeah, there was definitely some resistance in some areas. I would say another point that uh um that I've kind of accepted, or that, you know, I used to not really have a baseline type of strategy, right? Like we talked about before, I never really liked to simplify the game. But over the years, I have started to see the value of it. Um, but that was also just because in the times when I was so obviously we approach the game in a way that's optimal for a certain environment, right? And the environment right now is different than the environment 8 years ago, for example. So it makes sense that I valued things 8 years ago differently than things that I value nowadays, right? So since nowadays as well, if you for example compare population data 5 years to now, the numbers look way different. So the ideal strategy and your approach is also different. So nowadays I've seen more value in simplifying kind of your baseline strategy. But as we talked earlier, this should not be the end, because I understand that this, from that point, it allows you to perform, it allows you to gather more information because your brain is no longer wasting time on those ideas. Whereas in the past, I would have a different strategy versus every opponent. It was optimal at the time because people had very big leagues, right? And I was playing high stakes, so the pool is way smaller. But to give that then as a general advice for everyone now listening, it's probably not the best advice, right? Because their environment is different. If you play 200 Zoom, I would not recommend you playing a different strategy versus every single opponent because the pool is quite big, right? So then it's way better uh, to lay a solid foundation, I would say. So we've chatted for roughly 3 hours, Casimir, and we discussed a lot of great things. What would you like the main takeaway for our audience to be of the conversation we had today?
Good question. I guess I've been in kind of the flow state. I am at the final table, so I don't really remember many of the topics we've discussed. It's just kind of been it's been a flow around, and it's been a good conversation. I've been enjoying it. Don't know if there's any main takeaways I would like to lift up at this stage. I hope every topic was in somehow interesting, and it was a good time listening to the podcast. I had a good time coming on, so.
Great conversation, Casimir. Thank you for dropping in and sharing your story. Adam, main takeaways from today's conversation?
Yeah, recurring theme for me was around preparation and how much time and intentionality he puts into making sure he's ready to play his best poker every time he sits down. He mentioned a lot of lifestyle things, get a good night's sleep, make sure he's in the right frame of mind. He's even mentioned in the future he's going to fly to Canada or somewhere on a good time zone so he can be on a better routine. But it feels like he takes a lot of intentionality, I'd say, is the word around preparing so that he can perform at his best. When he does that, he feels like it's quite consistent. He sits down and he knows he's going to play well. He also seems self-aware enough to know when he's not playing well, when he's drifted out of his A game, when he's making mistakes. And for him, he had some good solutions of lowering his table count and actively refocusing, actively trying harder. I think that's often a underlooked part of performance, that sometimes you don't feel like it. Sometimes you're in a bit of a rut and you've got to actively put more intentionality into what you do to perform better. Another one was consistency. You mentioned a lot about putting hours, putting in study, showing up over and over. No cheat codes, no fast tracks to success, apart from a few run goods and good spots. But mainly put in a lot of consistent work. And then focus on performance was another theme that I've wrote down a few times. Not so much on results. I think for a tournament player, it's much more impressive to have that mindset to focus on performance and not the results, when on a daily basis there's just results in your face of like trying to get final tables, trying to get big scores. And for him, like, he wanted to win, so he's got this need or this desire to want to win, but never for the money. It's always to perform at his best and to kind of win for that kind of competition sake, which is a very nice blend. Because I know a lot of tournament players I work with who get really caught up in final tables, in the payout structures, and the chumps, and the mind just going crazy with the outcomes rather than performance, and they lose track of all the things we talked about in this conversation. And another one, which was a really good answer to what successful traits do you need to be a successful poker player? And he answered with love the game, put your hours in, study hard, have that balance with a good mental game, and then being healthy. I think those were a really good summary of his kind of traits from a mindset performance perspective, which I thought were really beneficial. How about for you, Rene? What are the main takeaways for you?
Scoop is harder than military training and can get quite dark, right? And then like the alignment of expectation before going into it, I think that was very valuable. Also, you talked a lot about, we didn't really talk about actual DEV, but you could, I think he said this was the last time that I grinded 4 months of winter in Finland, right? And he mentioned that he went to Costa Rica and he's now going to Canada. So for certain series, maybe change your location if you're in a suboptimal time zone, right? He was now going to Canada, Costa Rica. And he said just the energy you have when you actually feel rested. So doing that for like certain series, if you're online poker player, and then also he probably teams up with other guys, you know, to share an apartment, share a house. I really feel like that is a way that you can make a grind, like the scoop grind, which is harder than military training, a little bit less hard, right? Maybe you can all pitch in and swap with each other to reduce the variance and make it like a team effort. I can really see, you know, it doesn't have to be as dark and as brutal as it would be if you're grinding alone in Finland, right? So finding ways, I think that's very valuable advice. Um, Throughout this conversation, like you said, love for the game. I saw his passion, his curiosity. Therefore, he needed the result less, right? He said carpe diem. Sure, he wants to get there, but we talked earlier, right, about the impact of luck. But we concluded that it's about longevity. If you do all the things that guarantee longevity, you will be in the situation where luck will finally fall your way, right? So it's a matter of showing up until luck finally falls your way. And then we also talked about, I asked him like, how do you deal with the what ifs, right? I remember he had a very big flip not going his way. I think it was like 500k EV. And he said, how do you do it? And then he quickly switched perspectives. He said, well, what if I didn't win, you know, that satellite, right, to the 1K that highlighted his career in the beginning? What if, you know, he could think of many what ifs. So that ended up making him feel very grateful for the situation that he's in. So that was kind of the power of perspective, which is, I think, a very good trait. Poker, technical wise, a very important skill, aggression. And he also touched on if you spend too many hours in the solver and if people try to play too quote GTO, usually aggression is kind of what starts lacking, right? It's kind of the pushing on those exploits. So that was very important. Also, we talked about how to deal with aggression. And he said there's either two ways. Either you tighten up your ranges pre-flop and on the flop, and then, you know, it's easier to call down, or you go in the trenches. He was a big fan of going in the trenches. The last thing you want to do is start in the trenches and then bail out halfway, right? That's what we concluded. That's something that you should not be doing. The most valuable way that he improved was discussing hand histories. And obviously, there's some solver inputs going in here as well, right? Because they both go over a solver while reviewing the hand. And it's very important there to be open-minded and to be discussing hands with players who kind of have the same vision. I remember saying early in the conversation that what he liked about poker is that many things can be right, and it can be approached in many ways. So it's very important for him to do strategy with someone who agrees with that and who has kind of the same value around poker. Another very interesting one where I think I asked what his best piece of advice was that he ever was given was focusing on the opinion of your close circle, as the attention that you get from the people around you will come and go with big things that you make. Especially in, because he was a young guy just coming to the scene. It sounded like very valuable advice for him at that moment. And last, I wrote down about tracking and analyzing your data. I think in general, also tracking and analyzing your data gives you something else to measure than results, right? You become more process oriented, which will guarantee longevity. And if you stay in the game long enough, finally luck will come your way. Pretty interesting to think about, right? And he also confirmed that there was like the next Linus out there, but he just didn't make it because the first 6 months of his poker career he ran on a 0.1% bad run luck, and therefore he just quit because poker is no fun. Pretty crazy actually when you think about it, right? That we all everyone who made it in poker to a certain degree, if you're a professional poker player right now, you had moments where you cashed in on that luck. Yeah, great talk overall. I want to thank our audience for tuning in. Remember, if you want to have me and Adam help you make more progress in your poker career, mechanicsofpoker.com, link down below. A shout out to our sponsors, Coinpoker, GTO Wizard. Go check them out. If you like this episode, hit that like button. Leave your comments down below with your main takeaways. Subscribe and put the notification bell on, I think it is, for the next episode, which will be very good as well, I'm sure. And I will see you guys there.